Chapter 8:18. Wu Yu had already lived on Woodcutter Island for almost a month. Ever since he set out to sea, he had actually wandered around many places. In the end, he chose to settle down on a relatively peaceful island like this. The coastal islands had their own scenery, but also their own solitude. Small sects like Jade-Toad sect were limited by their strength. They would not meddle in other people's business. Their degree of control over the islands was also far from large sects like Fishing Tower, much less comparable to Mo Valley, which was like a military camp. Thus, it was suitable for hiding. He left the seaside and went to an ordinary house. He put away his cloak and changed into a hooded robe. He carefully wiped away his traces and left through the back door. He made his way through the disorderly alleyways and circled around for a long time. After confirming that he was not being followed, he left an obscure mark at the corner of the wall. This was how he contacted the doorless hell every time. When the brat from the doorless hell saw this mark, he would come looking for him. In comparison, he was more surprised that he could meet the Corner King directly and that the Corner King was also on Woodcutter Island. Perhaps the Corner King was skilled and bold, or perhaps he had to meet the King of Hell face to face in order to join the doorless hell. Wu Yu quietly left the mark and left. When he walked into another alley, he had already taken off his black robe and changed into a set of gray clothes. He put on another cloak. Then, he suddenly turned around and walked out of the alley. He walked around 2 streets and arrived in front of a courtyard with a hidden door. This was his current place of residence. It was also his 5th residence since coming to Woodcutter Island. He would not stay in the same place for more than 10 days at most. This was because he knew that no matter how careful and meticulous he was, he would inevitably leave behind inadvertent traces. This was because he knew just how terrifying Chi's group of blue metal cultivators were. Even the Doorless Hell's group of assassins, who walked the line between life and death all year round, who specialized in concealment and assassination, could not completely shake off their pursuers. He was far from having Yin Guan's strength and courage to break through with the help of a divine descent cultivator. Sometimes he would think that if he had not been so impulsive back then, he would still be a respected medical cultivator, an elder of Golden Needle sect, respected in Juha County, respected everywhere he went. He would be able to walk calmly under the sun without having to hide his face, without having to hide himself. Why would he be afraid of the doorless hell? Even if there were no gates to hell, they would still have to pay with the lives of several Yamakings because of Chi. Chi protects its people. And now, if any Yamaking wanted to kill him, it would be no different from squashing a bug. It wouldn't cause any commotion, and no one would notice. If he hadn't been so angry at that time. But Wu Yu had gone too far. Just like that old ghost who had already died, he was rotten, rigid, and stinking. Did they even put him in their eyes? Did he respect her at all? But there were no ifs. Things had already happened. Things had already come to this point. Wu Yu had told himself this countless times when he woke up in the middle of the night. People and things that changed with the passage of time were even more unsolvable than unsolvable illnesses, because it was already in the past. Wandering from place to place and living in fear was not a good feeling. Fortunately, he had saved a lot of primordial stones through the Gray Door before, so he was able to keep a relative amount of cultivation resources when he was in hiding. I'll be fine after I finish cultivating the secret needles. He thought again, but being rejected by King Qingguang had indeed cut off his expected escape route. He had thought that this was something that was in the bag. Was he not worthy of the position of Yamaking of an assassin organization? The most hateful was still the Golden Needle cult. Damn it, I'll let the gates to hell kill all of you. He thought fiercely in his heart. Of course, the gates to hell were also hateful, but he had no choice after all, so he could only let it go. This courtyard was very old. He had carefully passed it 3 times before someone bought it. It was impossible to find any clues. During the days when he got to Woodcutter Island, he lived in hiding. He didn't live happily, but at least he was still alive. Being alive was already better than many people. He was a medical cultivator and was used to seeing life and death, but he couldn't get rid of the fear between life and death. He had been looking for Qing Linghua, Chui Fong Luo, and Xiu Jiaobai for a long time. He had Qing Linghua and Xiu Jiaobai, but he was missing Chui Fong Luo. That thing was delicate, and it was difficult for ordinary people to survive. Other than paying more attention, there was no other good way. When he learned that Shui Fong Luo appeared at the singing event on Haimen Island, he was ecstatic, but he still didn't let down his guard. Even if the singing event looked completely normal, and there was almost nothing suspicious about the process, he asked people to go through several rounds, and he bought Shui Fong Luo back after many layers. During the whole process, he had been secretly using his own methods to monitor. If there was any problem, he would immediately give up. Fortunately, the Shui Fong Luo was safely in his hands. There were no accidents, and no one ambushed him. After failing to join the gates to hell this time, he decided to pay the gates to kill the master and disciple in the Golden Needle cult. Then he would immediately change his residence and properly practice the crossing disaster secret needle. After he succeeded, he would find an opportunity to go to the southern mountain range. The world was big, and it wasn't impossible to live after offending the Qi law. Xia country was very good. If Xia country couldn't do it, he would go to Chu. If Chu couldn't do it, there was Qin. In any case, he was an outer building cultivator. There was always a place to go. At this moment, the courtyard was in front of him. With a gentle push, he would return to his temporary safe place. He could temporarily relax, but his footsteps stopped. It shouldn't be. During the whole process, the Shui Fong Luo had been kept in the storage box. In theory, as long as the item could be placed inside, the storage box could isolate all auras. Of course, some items with special restrictions were excluded, but medicinal herbs like the Shui Fong Luo obviously didn't belong to that category. After he got the item, he hid in the room and checked it for a while. He didn't find any problems. It shouldn't have been tracked. But at this moment, the means set up in his residence clearly told him someone had been in the courtyard. Wu Yu suddenly felt a sense of danger and wanted to retreat. But almost at the same time, a voice sounded behind him. "Why aren't you going in?" That was a young, determined, and confident voice. Wu Yu turned around abruptly. First, he saw a brilliant sword gleam. Then, he heard a clear sword hum. Finally, he saw a young man with a delicate face and determined eyes. This scene could be said to have appeared at the same time, but in his perception, it was already divided into 3 layers. In the distant sky, a small star twinkled. The power of Xing Lu had crossed an imperceptible distance and landed on his body. The hazy light of the stars shone on his body, giving him immense strength and courage. It allowed him to break free from the sword momentum. With a quick flick of his finger, the golden needle shot out. The golden light formed into threads, weaving back and forth like a net. Green Dragon's sacred tower, the benevolence of a healer. The meaning was benevolence, and the power was healing. Chapter 819. The net made of golden thread disappeared from sight, but it blocked the space between the two. The broken space, the separated air, and the steep passage opened by the long sword were healing. It was as if all the injuries in the world were being healed at this moment. Therefore, the space could not be opened, the air could not be separated, and the long sword could not enter. Jiang Wang had seen the East King's 12 needles of the East King Valley and felt the mystery of medical cultivation. However, this adversity surmounting Golden Needle was indeed his own path. It had a unique strength of character. If the ancestor of the Golden Needle sect had not met with an accident, the sect might have been a different world now. Jiang Wang did not hold back and pressed his palm down. With the support of the Starfire secret manual, the Samadhi True fire gushed out. The feeling of being filled with tenacity suddenly disappeared. You can't cure this illness. The power of the Starlight Sacred Building was quickly burned by the power of the magical fire. The invisible but substantial obstruction was instantly dispelled. Wu Yu felt an immense fear. The fear did not only come from Jiang Wang, but also from the unknown. He was very clear about the situation he was facing. He knew that he had been found by Qi's blue metal. This was a scene that often made him worried and unable to sleep at night. Now, his imagination had become reality. There was already a blue metal constable with magical power here. Where were the others lying in ambush? However, he could not guess and could not calmly observe the environment. Because at this moment, the young man's blue metal sword was already in front of him. The sword was like the setting sun falling straight down, with a tragic momentum. The swordsman must have experienced the battlefield and real killing. Otherwise, he would not be able to condense such a sword style. He shook out a needle with his fingers and pierced Jiang Wang's head. This golden needle was as thin as a hair. It pierced through the air silently, cold and sharp. It was like frost, falling ice and snow, announcing the cold winter. The golden needle knitted the winter sun. Jiang Wang wiped the long sword in his hand. The sword was like a willow, and his body was like duckweed. The sword floated over involuntarily. The tip of the sword picked up the golden needle, but did not go head-to-head with it. It only lightly touched the tip of the needle, and it had been removed temporarily. The duckweed lifted the winter sun and gently swung it over. Thus, with a stomp of his foot, the azure cloud imprint dissipated. Stepping on the air like a flat step, he stepped on Wu Yu's side. His sword was already across his neck. Enter the sacred decisiveness tower or die. It was too sudden. The dim light in the distant sky disappeared in an instant. The starlight on Wu Yu's body dissipated. His neck was stiff and motionless. Clearly, he was very sensible. He even raised his palms flat and spread his fingers to show that he had no intention of resisting. If the golden needle is not used to prevent disaster, it will be difficult for a doctor to treat himself. All of this took a long time to describe, but it all happened in the blink of an eye. At this moment, Chong Xin, who was hiding in the courtyard, calculated the right time to rush out. But when he rushed out, the battle was already over. He wasn't a coward, nor was he trying to play tricks. He really wanted to perform well in front of Jiang Wang. After all, he was very certain that Jiang Wang, who had 2 mansions and 2 abijnas, would definitely be able to defeat Wu Yu, who was from the Yi Lu. But he didn't expect the battle to end so quickly. Only 2 rounds? 3 rounds? It was almost as if he had heard the commotion in the courtyard and deliberately paused for a moment. By the time he rushed out, there was already no chance for him to perform. Was this the strength of Tianjiao, the strongest of the Qi's younger generation, as Brother Xing had said? At this moment, Cheng Xin almost completely agreed with Cheng Gongshang's evaluation. If such strength wasn't number 1, then who was? Wang Yiwu, Lei Zhanqian, these people who had previously carried the name of Tianjiao had already proven their strength. Jiang Wang didn't care about Cheng Xin's feelings. He cautiously used the shackles to bind Wu Yu tightly before sheathing his sword. In this battle, he consciously didn't use the astral path, even if it would make it easier for him to win. The strength of the astral path lay in its concealment. Zhuang Changxian had already provided enough experience on this point. He had moved unhindered throughout his life and interacted with various major powers. In the end, not many people knew that he had the astral path abijnas. But it was precisely because of this that the astral path abijnas always allowed him to win decisive victories. This battle that was exposed before the eyes of others was also the first time Jiang Wang had fought an outer pavilion realm cultivator in public. And it wasn't the slightest bit modest to say that with Jiang Wang's current reputation in the state of Qi, this battle would surely be noticed and studied by others. Even if they were at the scene, there would be a pair of sharp eyes. Any trace of evidence would be hard for Lin Yuxi to overlook. The 2 mansions and 2 abijnas weren't secrets that could be hidden. But as for the second abijnas, those people would guess. Those who really wanted to know would have to be prepared to disappear along with the secret. If one said that medical cultivators weren't good at fighting, the experts of East King Valley would probably disagree. But in reality, the combat strength of other medical cultivators was generally low. And this Wu Yu wasn't that strong. Jiang Wang easily defeated and captured him, and the mission of capturing the criminal was considered complete. Compared to the dumbfounded Chongxian Xan, Lin Yuxi was much calmer. Perhaps it was because of her research on Jiang Wang that allowed her to understand Jiang Wang's strength to a certain extent, so she wasn't surprised by the outcome of this battle. She walked over from the other end of the alley and gently pushed the bound Wu Yu directly into the courtyard. She said, "Don't let others watch the show outside. Although the Jade-Toad sect is small, it's troublesome to negotiate with them." Jiang Wang and Chongxian Xian then followed into the courtyard. Lin Yuxi even casually closed the courtyard door. "How did you find me?" Wu Yu, who was pushed to the center of the courtyard, couldn't hide his fear. But he was also somewhat unconvinced and puzzled. "I've already done everything I can. I'm sufficiently cautious." Jiang Wang couldn't be bothered to explain to him. He only asked Lin Yuxi, "Will Constable Lin personally bring him back? Or should I send a message for someone to pick him up?" "Lord Jiang, please be compassionate, okay? This old man, Wu Yu, is returning to Linzi this time to be punished by the law. He won't be able to escape death. Don't tell me you won't solve his doubts before he dies." Lin Yuxi said as he looked at Wu Yu, "I can satisfy your curiosity, but you also need to satisfy mine. Deal?" Wu Yu smiled bitterly. "What else can I say now? If you're willing to listen to the bark of a defeated dog, it's not bad." "Nianxin," Lin Yuxi explained straightforwardly, "I placed Nianxin on the Jade Fong vine. Even if your master was reborn, he wouldn't be able to discover it, let alone you." "I see. After all, Wu Yu was born and raised in Qi. He had lived in Qi for more than 50 years, so he had some understanding of some things. After so many years, he had some knowledge. At this moment, he couldn't help but smile bitterly. Lin Kuang's descendant? As the saying goes, never forget, as if your heart is tied to the dust. I've only heard of it before, but now I've experienced it." Nianxin wasn't an item, but a secret technique. It could be roughly understood as the dust of thoughts or random thoughts and fragments of thoughts. It was the unique secret technique of Constable Lin Kuang. When it was placed on something, there was almost no way to find out where it was attached to, and the caster could easily find the target through the connection. Lin Yuxi didn't reminisce with him. He only said, "I've satisfied your curiosity. Now it's your turn to satisfy mine." Chapter 820. "Ask away." Wu Yu said. When he was on the chopping block, he didn't have the courage to break his promise. Because in many moments, death wasn't the most unbearable pain. Jiang Wang didn't know what Lin Yuxi wanted to ask, but this case was about to end soon, and Lin Yuxi was about to be dumped. There was no need to offend her now, so he maintained a tacit attitude. Zhong Xuanxin, on the other hand, was completely following Brother Zhong's lead. Lin Yuxi slowly walked to the position opposite Wu Yu and looked straight into his eyes. She was half a head shorter than Wu Yu, but when their eyes met, there was a condescending gaze. "Are you related to No Door to Hell?" she asked. Wu Yu's expression became even more bitter. "I didn't expect this to be a secret. Of course, in Qi, very few things can be hidden from us." Lin Yuxi said matter-of-factly, "An organization like No Door to Hell can naturally hide before it shows itself. But once we notice it, everything will be exposed." Speaking of this, she deliberately looked back at Jiang Wang. "Don't you think so?" "Maybe." Jiang Wang didn't have any expression. No Door to Hell. Wasn't Yingguan still free and unfettered? Blue Metal's background may be enough to crush No Door to Hell, but she was too big, and there were too many things that Blue Metal needed to deal with. No Door to Hell was not the only organization, but he didn't need to argue for No Door to Hell. He was humiliated and offended. If anyone was angry, it was Yingguan who should be angry. It had nothing to do with him, Jiang Wang. "Then why didn't you catch me before?" Wu Yu asked dejectedly. "Of course it was to catch a big fish. She has a few people like you. Unfortunately, No Door to Hell doesn't trust you enough." Lin Yuxi further broke down his defenses and then suddenly asked, "Do you know Jiang Wang from Qingyang Town and Qi's Tianjiao?" "I've heard of him, but I don't know enough." Wu Yu said truthfully. Obviously, he didn't connect the rumored Tianjiao with the young man who had just defeated him. Since he was far away in Zhuhe County, he usually did not care about the affairs of the young geniuses. Jiang Wang pursed his lips and said nothing. At this moment, Lin Yuxi was facing Wu Yu, who was tied up tightly. Jiang Wang was standing at the entrance of the courtyard, behind her. Chongxian Xianze and Jiang Wang stood opposite each other. The four people in the courtyard each had their own positions. Very good. Hearing Wu Yu's answer, Lin Yuxi smiled. Then let me ask you a question. You have to answer seriously. She asked slowly, the doorless hell. Is it related to Jiang Wang? His voice was gentle and encouraging. There's no need for evidence. Just tell me your judgment. Jiang Wang was expressionless and did not move his hands, but there was a flash of sharpness in his eyes. He had indeed helped the people from the doorless hell infiltrate Linzi City. Although that matter would not affect the final outcome of the assassination of Zhao Xian at the gates of hell, but it was a fact that he had violated Qi LV. He did not know if Ying Guan would tell the other people from the doorless hell about this. He did not know if Wu Yu had heard of this. So now, Lin Yuxi's question was very dangerous. Her back was facing Wu Yu, and she did not seem to be on guard. Jiang Wang was very confident that he could kill her in one move. She was born in a blue metal family with complicated relationships. She must have a way to save her life. Jiang Wang emphasized this in his heart. She must have a way to save her life, but she might not be able to save herself. The wrong path could interfere with her judgment, and the true Samadhi fire could easily burn her to ashes. But what about after killing her? Escape from Qi City and find another place to cultivate? If killing her was meaningless, then why should he kill her? Lin Yuxi was only loyal to the blue metal she wore. She did not slander or frame him. She kept pestering him and was annoying. But should he kill her? In the end, Jiang Wang did not do anything. There was no need. If Lin Yuxi asked any questions, whether he killed Lin Yuxi or not, the result would be that he had to escape from Qi City. If she could not get any answers, then there was no need to act rashly. On the other hand, Chongxin looked at Jiang Wang and was eager to try. He seemed to be very angry at Lin Yuxi's offense. It seemed that as long as Jiang Wang gave him a look, he would not hesitate to go forward and kill Lin Yuxi. But the reason why he was so eager to show off was that he did not know Lin Yuxi's weight and did not know her background. He thought that Zheng Genjia was enough to settle this. But Jiang Wang knew very well that Cheng Gengsheng's current power was not enough to settle this matter. The time to consider was very short, but for the people involved, it was extremely long. Lin Yuxi seemed to be unprepared. Jiang Wang did not seem to care. Wu Yu shook his head and finally said, I don't know. You're very honest, Lin Yuxi said softly. Lin Yuxi said softly, then let me change the question. Before Jiang Wang became famous in the kingdom of Qi, did any of the killers who were treated by you talk about Jiang Wang? No matter what they talked about. Wu Yu thought carefully. Never. Lin Yuxi smiled. I don't think so either. My Qi City is Tianjiao City. Why would I be involved with those gutter rats? Jiang Wang tapped the hilt of his sword and said impatiently, Are you done? Constable Lin? Of course. Lin Yuxi seemed to be much more relaxed. He turned sideways. Do you have anything to ask? Interrogation is not my specialty. Jiang Wang shook his head. If that's the case, Constable Lin, please return to Linzi. I have a request. Wu Yu suddenly shouted. When everyone in the courtyard looked at him, he begged humbly, Can you send me back to Zhuhe County to be interrogated? I want to spend the last time in my hometown. These words were spoken with a hint of emotion. Unfortunately, no one in the courtyard would be affected by him. Jiang Wang was indifferent. Lin Yuxi smiled. You're quite the schemer. You almost killed your senior apprentice brother by plotting against him, and now you're counting on him? Wu Yu. You should be called Smart Wu Yu. Wu Yu was not embarrassed that his thoughts were exposed. He only said, I have a lot of primeval stones. I can give all my primeval stones to you, as long as you send me back to Zhuhe County. He did not expect these blue metal constables to let him go. That was impossible. Even the greediest blue metal constables would not risk their lives for a few primeval stones and give up their bright future in Qi City. If he was sent directly to Linzi, he would definitely be executed for his crimes. When he returned to Zhuhe County, that stupid and hypocritical senior apprentice brother would definitely not have the heart to kill him. At most, he would cripple his medical skills. A bad life was better than a good death. His senior apprentice brother Wu Yu was not good in any way. This was the only thing that gave him some hope. That was enough. Jiang Wang despised this person's character, but he did not say anything. Lin Yuxi smiled. As long as you cooperate with us, it won't be a problem to send you back to Zhua County. As for other things, it's not impossible to discuss. The cooperation she was talking about was naturally not just following them obediently. She might be able to write a big article about Wu Yu's connection with the Doorless Hell. I'll cooperate. I'll cooperate with everything. Wu Yu promised. However, Jiang Wang was not interested in this. Since Constable Lin has his own arrangements, I'll take my leave first. Lin Yuxi looked at Jiang Wang and said with a smile, "Take care." However, at this moment, Wu Yu, who was beside her, suddenly stretched out his hands. At this moment, he exploded with so much power that he actually broke free from the shackles of the shackles. However, before Lin Yuxi could react, and before Jiang Wang could make a move, he grabbed his throat. He crossed his arms and grabbed his own throat. Exerting force, his neck made an indescribable sound, and he died on the spot. Chapter 821. Not long ago, in a messy alley, Wu Yu left an inconspicuous mark on a corner of a wall. The mark was shaped like a tree branch. At first glance, it seemed to be a scratch left behind by someone inadvertently. Or perhaps it was a mark left behind by the wind and rain. A slender figure wrapped in a black robe passed by the alley. His footsteps were light. When he passed by the mark, he did not stop at all. But the person walked around a few times with ease and naturally passed by the small courtyard where Wu Yu lived. Of course, he felt the subtle fluctuations of the battle from afar. He did not observe, was not curious, and did not stop. This person walked straight past. It was as if he had nothing to do with all of this and did not care about all of this. But not long after, green lines of fire suddenly burned on the inconspicuous mark in the corner of the alley. The demonic green fire instantly burned through the entire mark. At the same time, Wu Yu, who was in the courtyard, was suddenly controlled by an indescribable emotion. It was resentment, unwillingness, fear, and the aggregation of many negative emotions. This gave him a strong urge to self-destruct, making him not want to live anymore. He wanted to die. He really wanted to die. At this moment, the scenes of his life did not replay in his mind. He just suddenly remembered something very boring. That was a long time ago. That old man, what did he say? It was better to be stupid. He said that a doctor only wanted to heal. Wealth and glory were not what he wanted. He said that his life depended on these two words, on these two people. It was completely baffling. What was he talking about? I really want to die. The impulse in his heart suddenly surged with strength, allowing him, who was originally shackled, to break free from his hands. That feeling, it was clearly only a short period of time, but it had been a long time since he had freedom. Freedom, he shouted in his heart. Then his hands strangled themselves. Before Jiang Wang could react, he died on the spot. This, Chong Xian was inexplicably terrified. He looked around. What's going on? As he spoke, he could not help but move closer to Jiang Wang. In such an unknown and terrifying moment, it was safer to be by the side of a strong person. Jiang Wang pressed his hand on the long sword, but did not speak. In that moment, he felt a familiar fluctuation of power. The power of spells. It's Yin Guan, there's no mistake. This person's current strength was so strong that he could easily curse and kill an outer sect cultivator without being present at all. Although Wu Yu was bound and lost the ability to resist, although he might have been affected by Yin Guan's curse technique power, it was still shocking. Compared to the last time they parted, he had become even more powerful. As expected of a powerhouse who had turned a narrow and winding path into a path to heaven. How fast was his progress? Wu Yu did not know what kind of mysteries the imprint that had always connected him to the gates of hell possessed. The power of King Qingguang's curse had already affected him. He thought that after he returned to Qi, he would be able to betray hell at will. He even immediately thought of using the Corner King's address in the offshore islands as a bargaining chip. But everything returned to an illusory state, dead silence. The black-robed man who walked through the alley was Brat. He was a person in charge of foreign affairs who had been active in the offshore islands recently. After she informed Guan in some way that Wu Yu had been captured, Guan directly cast a curse to kill him in an unknown place. This terrifying scene stunned Chongqian Xin. Even Jiang Wang, who had guessed the inside story, was secretly shocked. But Lin Yuxi's eyes lit up. Wu Yu must know some secret. Otherwise, the gates of hell would not want to kill him. She even seemed very excited. He was fine in Qi, but something happened here. This means that the secret he knows is in the offshore islands. What is it? Chongqian Xin glanced at her with some fear. He only felt that this woman was a little crazy. A cultivator of the soaring dragon realm was relentlessly pursuing the infamous Hell's Gate. Brother Jiang, what should we do now? He asked Jiang Wang. He hoped that Jiang Wang would quickly decide to leave. This place felt too dangerous, as if they could be controlled to commit suicide at any time. They had to quickly leave this crazy woman who was looking for death. But before Jiang Wang could speak, Lin Yuxi had already looked over. Lord Jiang, very good news. She said seriously, we don't know what secret the gates of hell has in the offshore islands, but one thing is certain. For the gates of hell to kill Wu Yu, to silence him, they need at least one king of hell to guard this place. What do you think? She seemed to have an innate passion for investigating and arresting criminals. Her entire person became radiant. Do you want to come with me to ferret out that big rat? After we ferret it out, I believe that the inspector's office will give a reward that is worthy of a king of hell. It will also give you a chance to get the third-rank blue medal earlier. This rat is indeed big, but unfortunately, it's too big. Jiang Wang politely declined. I'm not interested. Besides, I have something to do myself. Lin Yuxi paused for a moment, as if she had just remembered the purpose of Jiang Wang's trip. So she smiled. Okay, I won't force you. Jiang Wang cautiously checked the shackles. After confirming that there were no problems, he put them away. Since the first time he explored the cloud-top Immortal Palace, one of the shackles had been dispelled by the word Dao Thief. Until now, he had only managed to repair 2 shackles. He didn't know when he would truly have the power of the 10 great shackles of legalism. The shackles swam into the void, leaving only Wu Yu's corpse lying there. Jiang Wang thought for a moment, then said, Constable Lin, although it's necessary to eradicate evil, one must know that there are times when one's strength is limited. Please take care of yourself. Lin Yuxi tilted her head, as if she was very surprised that Jiang Wang would say such a thing. After being pestered and suspected so many times, even if he didn't hate her to death, he should detest her to the extreme. Then, Lord Jiang, I'll also give you a piece of advice. She thought for a moment, then said, although I did catch the culprit in the Fengxian County case, there are still problems that haven't been solved. I've seen too many generations of blue metal. No one would believe it. But at that time, I inexplicably believed Zhang Yong and didn't suspect her for a long time. There must be something wrong with this person. Although no one investigated it anymore, and the case was dropped, I was the one who handled it. But that's my case, so I have to investigate it to the end. She looked at Jiang Wang. I'm now sure that you're not on the same side as him. But you're Cheese Man from Qingyang Town. You're a 4th-rank blue metal constable. Qi treats you well. In the future, I hope you'll think carefully and be careful with your words and actions. He didn't know what method she used to confirm that Jiang Wang and Zhang Yong were not on the same side. But it had to do with the observation she had been following and pestering him these past few days. Jiang Wang suddenly thought of his inexplicable sense of familiarity with Zhang Yong, as well as his own inexplicable soft-heartedness on Mount Yunwu. Could it be that he was also on the wrong path? It shouldn't be. Firstly, Zhang Yong was only in the soaring dragon realm at that time, so there was no reason for him to use divine powers. Secondly, if he could really grasp a divine power like the wrong path, he shouldn't have lost to Jiang Wang in battle. He thought a lot in his heart, but he didn't show it on his face. After all, he and Lin Yuxi didn't know each other well, so there was no need to talk too much. In the end, Jiang Wang only cupped his hands. Then, I'll take my leave. Chapter 822. Chongqian Xin followed Jiang Wang cautiously as he left, afraid that there would be another accident. After all, an expert from the outer sect had died in such a terrifying way in front of him. It was hard for him not to panic, especially when he knew that if the person who made Wu Yu commit suicide was present, Jiang Wang would not be able to protect him. Compared to Chongxian Xian's fear, Lin Yuxi, who was at the same level as him, was not afraid at all. Jiang Wang and Chongxian Xian had already left. She stood quietly in the courtyard for a while, then squatted down and put on a pair of translucent gloves made of an unknown material. She began to examine Wu Yu's body very carefully. From his hair to his 7 orifices, including his storage box, she put aside the secret manual of the adversity surmounting Golden Needle without looking at it. It was not that she looked down on it, but the Golden Needle sect was a sect in Qi and was under the protection of Qi LV. The Blue Metal Arrestor had the duty to help the Golden Needle sect hunt down Wu Yu, but did not have the right to read the secret manual of the Golden Needle sect. "What did you see?" An old voice sounded behind her. A spirited old man with white hair appeared in the courtyard. Among the white hair that draped over his shoulders, there were 2 strands of black hair hanging down from his sideburns. It was strangely symmetrical and harmonious. Lin Yuxi did not look back, as if she knew that this person would come. After she carefully examined the body, she took off her gloves and put them in her waist pocket. The small cloth bag seemed to be a storage bag, as it did not bulge at all when it was put in things. This kind of storage bag was very rare nowadays. Her 10 fingers were not as delicate and white as those of ordinary girls. Instead, they had an abnormally clean and overly clean paleness. It seemed that she washed her hands 100 times a day. She put 2 fingers on each hand and wiped them across her eyes. Her eyes suddenly became much clearer, and there was a faint glow in them. Then she looked into Wu Yu's eyes. His eyes were still wide open, even though he was already dead. After a long time, Lin Yuxi closed her eyes and said, "Is it the power of a curse?" "Ingguan?" The old man did not comment. "What else?" Lin Yuxi opened his eyes and thought for a while. He sighed, "Elder Wu, I can't tell." "It's normal that you can't tell." The old man spoke softly, but it seemed that he did not intend to reveal the answer for Lin Yuxi. He only said, "Although Yulong has been exhausted by those disappointing juniors in the family and is not as sharp as before, he is definitely not muddle-headed. The fact that Ingguan was able to break through to the Divine Advent realm under his pressure is enough to prove how terrifying he is. Ingguan's talent is naturally terrifying, but fighting is not the responsibility of the blue metal." Lin Yuxi said indifferently, "Let Yung Genzuan and Jiang Wang worry about it." The old man asked, "Do you think Jiang Qingyang can compete with Yung Genzuan?" Lin Yuxi said, "Not yet, but after all, Jiang Wang is younger." The old man said, "Age, state, mood, time, and so on can all be used as excuses, but they are meaningless in the face of life and death. Every generation has its own destiny. Sometimes being born earlier is an advantage." Lin Yuxi smiled. "I'm not defending Jiang Wang. Whether he can compete with Yung Genzuan or not has nothing to do with me. Moreover, I'm just a little cultivator in the soaring dragon realm. It's too arrogant for me to comment on these people in Qianjiao." The old man did not smile. "You already have the answer?" "Yes." Lin Yuxi also became serious. "I can already confirm that Jiang Qingyang has nothing to do with that case. His purpose in coming to Qi is also very simple. I guess the reason why he first met Cheng Gongsheng was because of the great illusionary land. However, he definitely knows Ingguan. There are some problems here. Speaking of this," she added, "but he said that he is a good person, so I agree with him for now." The old man did not ask how she was so sure. It seemed that he also had considerable confidence in this little girl. He only asked, "Then, what do you plan to do next?" Lin Yuxi did not stand up until this time. She looked at the blue sky, and her eyes were bright. "We'll catch the little mouse later. First, we'll find the big mouse that's hiding." The old man nodded and disappeared. Only a sentence was left, floating in the courtyard. "Wu Yu's body and belongings will be collected later." Lin Yuxi also left without any reluctance. But before stepping out of the courtyard, she suddenly laughed softly. "Lord Jiang, I'm really curious what you'll do. What you're going to do is more difficult than catching a mouse, much more difficult. The laughter softly dissipated, and not many people heard it. Only Hai Feng. If Jiang Wang could know the old man's identity and know that he was nearby, he would be very happy. He would definitely be very happy that he did not have the intention to kill Lin Yuxi. This person's name was Uriel. Many years ago, he was as famous as Lin Kuang. At one time, they were known as the two prides of the blue metal. People called them Uriel in the south and Lin Kuang in the north. Later, Lin Kuang died in a shocking case. Not long after, Uriel also resigned. A few years later, Yulong became a god arrester. One could say that this person's qualifications were much higher than Yulong's. And Lin Yuxi was Lin Kuang's granddaughter. But Jiang Wang did not know anything. Even when Wu Yu said Lin Kuang's name, he did not know who he was. Not only did he not know, but even Chongshin Xian did not know. Maybe from Wu Yu's tone, he vaguely knew that this was a person who had been famous. That was all. Chapter 823. Jiang Wang didn't need to rush to Little Crescent Island in the shortest time possible. He had asked Chongxian to return to Neverwinter Island first because he wanted to take his time. He wanted to experience the scenery of the offshore island slowly and personally experience the influence of the ocean fishing tower. He wanted to find a possible breakthrough point. He now had Cheng Gengsheng and Jiang Wuyo's help, but their combined strength was still insufficient compared to the ocean fishing tower. After all, the ocean fishing tower corresponded to a national force like Qi. The three of them together were still insignificant compared to the ocean fishing tower. Therefore, they needed a breakthrough point, a key entrance, to have a chance to break the rules of the ocean fishing tower and rescue Zhu Biqian. Sitting in the keel boat passing by the offshore islands, Jiang Wang silently thought about his own matters. This keel boat could carry 30 people at a time and was the most common boat in the offshore islands. Compared to the 100-fin boats commonly seen in inland rivers, keel boats were more suitable for the wind and waves of the sea and came in different sizes. Of course, they could only operate in the offshore waters. The boats going to the Lost World had unique structures and were classified as military equipment. Ordinary forces couldn't get their hands on them. Competition between Qi and the ocean fishing tower could be seen everywhere in the offshore islands. For example, the fare for the keel boat could only be paid with dragon coins made by the ocean fishing tower. In places like Seagate Island, all kinds of food and clothing could be paid with Qi Dao coins or dragon coins. The islanders recognized both. The reason for the special fare was that the keel boats were made by the ocean fishing tower. In the early years, there were all kinds of strange boats in the offshore waters. Now, there were still many kinds of boats, but the boats that specialized in carrying passengers between the islands had all been unified into keel boats, silently carrying out the will of the ocean fishing tower for a long time. After all, there were more ordinary people in this world who couldn't transcend. The Meridian Unlocking Pill was precious to begin with, and it wasn't certain that one could open one's meridians after taking it. For example, Wang Zhangji was regarded as a cripple who wasted the Meridian Unlocking Pill in Maplewood City, and this was not rare. Therefore, the Tao Academy had an outer sex system to select people who could withstand the effects of the Meridian Unlocking Pill and complete the process. Many cultivation forces in the world had similar systems. Before anyone unlocking their meridians, they would need to condition their body to a suitable state before consuming the Meridian Unlocking Pill. Some would arrive earlier, while others would arrive later. Take Jiang Ainen, for example. Firstly, her talent wasn't bad. Jiang Wang had personally taught her to lay her foundation. Secondly, High Heaven Pavilion had nurtured her well. Thirdly, the quality of the Meridian Opening Pill she had taken was good. That was why he had opened his meridians at such a young age. Some people pursued a more complete body, while some people just couldn't recuperate. There were all kinds of people. Other than Jiang Wang, there was no other transcendent cultivator in the cabin, and the passengers were all talking loudly to pass the time of the bumpy journey. Yesterday, the sea beast from the Jade Toad sect went berserk and many people died. In my opinion, you shouldn't have raised sea beasts. They are so ferocious that it's hard to tame them. That's right. He didn't know what those people were thinking. If you have the strength, why don't you explore the outer seas? It was hard to hear the word sea from the mouths of ordinary islanders. They usually referred to it as the outer sea. The sea area of the bewildering world was also known as the Sea of Death. The bewildering world was the battlefield of transcendent cultivators. The opponents of the Sea Clan would always be transcendent cultivators, until the cultivators guarding the sea border died out. Just like the people of Chi, ordinary islanders didn't have the concept of the Sea Clan. They knew that the outer seas were dangerous, but only a few people knew where the danger came from. There were even many people who lived on a small island their whole lives. They knew that there were other islands, but they had never been there. The people on the ship were all talking at once. These voices overlapped with the sound of the waves and spun around Jiang Wang's ears. He was thinking about the problem of Nianshun. Lin Yuxi easily found Wu Yu, which also let Jiang Wang know about the secret technique of Nianshun. He knew why he couldn't get rid of Lin Yuxi. He didn't know if he still had Nianshun in his body. He wanted to check, but he didn't know where to start, because what it showed was only a thought. When one thought of something, it would actually be in one's heart. Therefore, it was invisible and colorless, undetectable and undetectable. So, how could he isolate it? Jiang Wang suddenly remembered the mysterious person he met in Wenxi County. At that time, that person said, "Hey, gaze also has weight." Jiang Wang only glanced at him a few times inadvertently, and he was immediately noticed. Then, was the principle of Nian Chun similar to this? If he could sense the weight of a gaze and accurately sense the gaze of others, would he be able to sense the thoughts of others? This was the use of the power of the soul. It should be the domain of the spiritual sense, or it could only be developed when one reached the God arrival realm. From this, it could be seen how amazing the secret technique used by Lin Yuxi of the Soaring Dragon realm was. How outstanding was the person who created this secret technique? Jiang Wang believed that the power of his soul was strong. After being strengthened many times, his strength shouldn't lose to the mysterious person he met in Wenxi County. However, in terms of application skills, he was far inferior. Using the sword spirit of Xiangxi had a certain level of soul-killing ability. However, when it came to a secret technique like Nianshun, he was a little helpless. After thinking for a while, he still couldn't come up with a good idea. He could only temporarily restrain his thoughts. Do you see a lot of sea beasts? Jiang Wang casually found a topic and joined the conversation of the passengers. With his clean and handsome appearance and clean and upright posture, it was easy for him to leave a good impression on people who met him for the first time. He didn't meet with a cold reception. A big uncle replied, "Not many here. The closer we get to the Isle of Hawaii, the more there are." Basically, they were captured and tamed from the outer sea. They are very dangerous things. Young man, don't be too curious. Weren't they tamed by cultivators? Why are they still dangerous? Jiang Wang asked. The uncle's tone was like a child who was difficult to teach. They are tamed. Normally, they wouldn't attack the island. However, a random sea beast that's a few stories tall can destroy you with a flick of its wrist. How dangerous do you think it is? Someone beside him mocked. That's enough, old Zhao. You make it sound as if you've really been to the Isle of Hawaii. Old Zhao didn't get angry. He only chuckled. Hearing about it is the same as seeing it. The person beside him was probably his friend. He was also a man who had been exposed to the elements. When he heard this, he continued, "That depends on who you hear it from. Some people are full of nonsense. How can you believe their words? Why can't I believe it? My uncle's son's neighbor's daughter is a cultivator from the Five Immortals sect. She told my uncle's son's neighbor before. How can it be fake?" Old Zhao glared. Jiang Wang had only asked a few questions. Before he could say anything, the two of them had already started arguing. However, the name Five Immortals sect caught Jiang Wang's attention. As the new master of the Cloud Top Immortal Palace, he couldn't help but be particularly sensitive to the term immortal. People who lived in the mountains were immortals. A long time ago, extraordinary cultivators were regarded as immortals. Even now it was still so. However, after the late ancient era, in the cultivation world, when immortals were mentioned, they were referring to cultivators from the 9 great immortal palaces. The 9 great immortal palaces even had their own immortal technique system, which was said to be superior to Taoist techniques. What kind of sect is the 5 Immortals sect? Jiang Wang asked curiously. This is my first time here, so I'm not too sure. Old Zhao, who looked fierce but was warm inside, replied, Then you'd better remember. The next island this ship docks at is Summer Island. The 5 Immortals sect is the strongest sect on Summer Island. You must not provoke their people. What? The 5 Immortals sect is the strongest? Old Zhao's friend was clearly unconvinced. The Furious Whale sect has thousands of people. How can they agree? Among those thousands of people, most of them only know some superficial martial arts, Old Zhao said disdainfully. Besides, extraordinary cultivators don't rely on numbers. Do you know that a strong one can beat thousands of weak ones? After saying this, he used his thick arm to squeeze Jiang Wang. I see that you're carrying a sword. You're a martial artist, so you should be knowledgeable. Don't you think so? Jiang Wang was very supportive. He laughed softly and said, Uncle Zhao's words make sense. Not everyone could soar into the sky and burrow into the ground, climb the peak bravely, scheme against each other, or fight for power. Most ordinary people's lives were nothing more than bragging. Chapter 824. Old Zhao's friend was unconvinced. The Furious Whale Gang has quite a few transcendent cultivators. Could it be that they have more transcendent cultivators than the 5 Immortals sect? It's not about who has more people. You just said it yourself. The 2 of them were like ordinary old men at the entrance of a village. After a day of work, they couldn't help but boast to each other when they took a break. Even though he had never left the town in his entire life, he could freely discuss the situation of the various countries and give pointers to generations of nobles. If he had listened to their words, there would have been no need for that. However, they were just teasing him and didn't have any bad intentions. They weren't trying to deceive others. He was just fooling himself into living an ordinary life. Old Zhao suddenly snorted coldly. In this cold snort, there was a kind of complacency that came from grasping the truth alone. Don't you know that the important figure behind the Furious Whale Gang is gone? What a joke, Old Zhao's friend said disdainfully. Do you know who the big shot behind the Furious Whale Gang is? That was Elder Hai Zoming of Fishing Ocean Tower. You know nothing. Then he glanced at Jiang Wang. Young man, you don't know anything. Don't make a fuss with this guy. It seemed that he was very dissatisfied with Jiang Wang's support for Old Zhao. Hai Zoming had already been dead for several months. Jiang Wang smiled but didn't say anything. He signaled them to continue fighting and not to worry about him. Regardless of whether it was the 5 Immortals sect or the Furious Whale sect, neither had anything to do with them. Yet, the 2 of them were arguing so fiercely. This was a common sight in the lives of ordinary people. It was smoke and fire. Jiang Wang didn't mind, and he didn't think he should be offended by these ordinary people. Just like an ordinary young man, he was obediently listening to the advice of an experienced person. Old Zhao was obviously shaken. He also felt that the rumors he had heard were not very reliable. How could an elder of the Fishing Sea Tower be killed so easily? However, he still forced himself to say, how was the big shot behind the 5 Immortals sect weak? That was Granny Bijou. Isn't he also an elder of the Fishing Ocean Tower? Jiang Wang's heart stirred. He knew that Zhu Biqiong was a disciple of Granny Bijou, an elder of the Sea Fishing Tower. Zhu Biqiong's older sister, Zhu Suyao, is the most talented disciple of Granny Bijou. Later, he was hurt by love and was tricked by Hu Xiaomeng, which hindered his cultivation. Granny Bijou had also won her a chance to enter the Heaven's secret territory. At that time, she had entered the Heaven's secret territory with Jiang Wang and the others. Unfortunately, Jiang Wang managed to escape while Zhu Suyao was lost inside. As an elder of the Fishing Sea Tower, it was normal for him to have close ties with some small sects in the nearby islands. This was also one of the methods that Fishing Sea Tower used to maintain its influence in the offshore islands. However, Judging from their conversation, the sects that Granny Bijou and Hai Zoming supported seemed to be in a competitive relationship with each other. Old Zhao and the other two supporters from God knows how far away they were from each other. If they were able to fight so vigorously, who knew how much the two sects involved would fight? Is this fishing sea building strategy of raising goo? Or was there some conflict between Granny Bijou and Hai Zoming? Old Zhao's friend continued. Who knows how long that kind of celestial being can live? How could it be gone so easily? Tell me about it. Old Zhao's momentum weakened. But there are many who went to the outer seas and didn't come back. You think something happened to them? Who knows where those transcendents went to? Do you know that there are immortal mountains in the outer seas? What do you know about living under the sun and wind? Old Zhao's friend's momentum was high as he pressed on. Do you know? I'll go. Halfway through his words, he blurted out, because right at this moment, the Dragonbone ship suddenly shook. The cabin was filled with cries of alarm. The passengers in the cabin immediately fell to the ground. Only Jiang Wang remained in his original position, not moving at all. Outside, a sailor's frightened voice could be heard. Sea beast. The sea beast is out of control. The voice was incomparably miserable, as if doomsday was approaching. Motherf asterisk cur, Motherf asterisk cur. Old Zhao clenched his teeth as the ship shook violently. Suddenly, he felt a gust of wind blow past him, and his grip was suddenly empty. That young man who was laughing and watching him bicker with his old friend was gone. He quickly realized something. He struggled to get up and try to squeeze his way out. A transcendence. He had just sat on the same boat as a transcendence. He wanted to see a transcendence fight a sea beast. Motherf asterisk cur, there's so much to boast about, he thought. Jiang Wang squeezed out of the cabin in a few steps and stood on the deck. In front of the ship, there was an octopus-like sea beast as tall as a 3-story building. The Dragonbone ship could carry 30 people. In fact, its size wasn't small, but in front of this sea beast, it was like a child's toy. It was like a rattledrum or a cotton candy that could be easily destroyed. This sea beast had 3 huge eyes, and all 3 eyes were filled with madness. Obviously, it had completely lost control. It had 8 tentacles, for were swimming under the sea, and the other for were crazily flapping on the surface of the sea. Huge waves rose and fell with it, with a kind of momentum that could destroy everything. On the deck, there were desperate sailors. The captain of this ship had already rolled into the sea. Although he could swim, in such fierce waves, he could only struggle with all his might, vainly trying to survive. Amidst the huge rumbling, screams, and despair, there was a clean and smooth sword hum. A dazzling sword light drew an extremely elegant arc in the air. A young man in high spirits, holding a long sword, jumped between the sea and the sky. He took a few turns in the air, and the green clouds scattered. Bang, bang, bang. It was the sound of the huge tentacles being cut off and falling into the sea. Blood spurted out, instantly dyeing the surrounding seawater red. Roar! The sea beast roared. It spat out countless sharp water spears from its mouth. The sharp water spears whistled as they covered Jiang Wang's surroundings. Jiang Wang tapped the ground with the tip of his foot and stepped on the green clouds, perfectly passing through the gaps between the water spears. At the same time, he slashed with his long sword, and the sword light increased sharply, cutting the water spears from the tail. If it was for battle, he could just avoid it. However, if these water spears were not stopped, they would definitely hit the Dragonbone ship. At that time, the number of casualties would be unknown. After destroying the dense water spears, Jiang Wang stepped on the sea beast's head again. His figure flashed past the sea beast's 3 eyes. The cold light flashed, and the 3 eyes were all cut open. The turbid liquid in the eyeballs shot out together with the blood. The sea beast became more and more frenzied, but it was completely unable to grasp Jiang Wang's position. It could only open its mouth and continuously shoot water spears. At the same time, 2 of the tentacles hidden under the water separated and danced in front of it. It was so frenzied that it did not even feel the water spears it spat out, piercing its own tentacles. There was almost no safe place around the frenzied sea beast. Everything was affected. However, its vitality was extremely strong. It was severely injured by Jiang Wang, but did not show any signs of weakness. It seemed that its blood was endless, and its vitality was endless. Jiang Wang stepped on the air as if he was leisurely. He waved his sword casually, and it would definitely hurt the sea beast. In the stormy sea, he was indescribably relaxed and carefree, and he had the posture of an expert. It was admirable. However, he was the only one who knew how difficult it was for him. This sea beast seemed to be unkillable. The more injured it was, the more frenzied it became, and the more powerful it seemed. Chapter 825. Humans were to sea beasts what chickens were to boulders. The huge difference in size made even a sea beast that was not out of control a dangerous existence. Jiang Wang's sword moved like a flash of light. He did not stop attacking, but the sea beast did not die. It just kept howling and going crazy. After all, in terms of appearance, the sea sword body was not as big as a human's fingernail, even if it pierced through the sea beast's body. It was hard to die from injuries. If it was just Jiang Wang fighting the sea beast, he would have enough patience to wait for the sea beast to die slowly. However, there were boats and people falling into the sea. He could not protect them all in the fierce battle. He had to finish it quickly, because at this moment, Jiang Wang stepped on the clouds and passed through the crazy tentacles and dense ice spears. He was already on top of the sea beast's head. Then he stomped down. The thick grease was a natural armor. When Jiang Wang stepped on it, he felt like he was trapped in a whirlpool. He could not exert his strength. Fortunately, he did not have any advanced leg techniques, and he did not intend to kill the sea beast directly. The real attack was not here. Thousands of soul snakes rushed out from the depths of the inner mansion and directly entered the sea of consciousness of the sea beast. Its body was indeed strong, but judging from its intelligence, its soul might be weak. Through the eyes of the soul snakes, Jiang Wang immediately saw a barren, rancid, and quagmire-like space. In this decaying space, there was a decaying aura everywhere, as if it was on the verge of collapse. It was completely unlike the sea beast body, which had an endless supply of vitality. In the center of the quagmire-like space, there was a small island. The sea beast's soul was curled up there. Compared to its huge body, its soul was obviously much thinner. Perhaps this was a sign of weakness. A small, tattered flag fell at its feet. On the flag, there was the word ban, which was written by Chi-Wan. Chi's language was a mixture of C1 and some other languages. After a long time, it gradually evolved into what it was today. As Chi-Wan's influence expanded, it slowly became the common language in the eastern region. Even though Fishing Sea Tower and Chi weren't enemies, they were very wary of Chi and insisted on promoting their dragon coins in the offshore islands, which had achieved some results. But in terms of writing, Chi-Wan was more recognized by everyone. It was nothing but the power of the nation. If one looked at the entire world, which country's language was as popular as Jing's? After all, it was the language that was closest to the Tao language, and it was said to be the most orthodox and sacred. As soon as Jiang Wang saw the flag, he could roughly guess what it was. The flag was the key to taming the sea beasts, and it was the destruction of the flag that caused the sea beasts to lose control. However, why would the restriction flag be destroyed without any reason? It was normal for them to check the restriction flags regularly. A sect that tamed sea beasts shouldn't have overlooked this point. With that thought in mind, the densely packed black snakes quickly swam through the quagmire and headed towards a small, isolated island in the middle. At this delicate moment, Jiang Wang didn't know why, but a fantasy suddenly flashed through his mind. The verdant and luxuriant island that was filled with vitality was his vast lone island of the heavens and the earth, and it floated on the boundless five prefectural ocean. Everything was thriving, and it was filled with hope. But suddenly, a huge and terrifying shadow was projected from the bottom of the sea. This scene flashed past like a fleeting light, as if it had never existed. On the small, isolated island in the quagmire, the thin sea beast Divine Soul was cowering in fear as it faced the approaching and densely packed group of snakes. 3 of its eyes were tightly shut, and 8 of its tentacles were tightly wrapped around itself. It was clearly frightened. Compared to its physical body, the sea beast's Divine Soul was petite and weak. Its pitiful appearance didn't have any of the fierceness it appeared to have, and one couldn't help but feel pity for it. Perhaps it had its own pitiful reasons. It didn't want to be restricted, Jiang Wang thought in his heart. The group of snakes didn't hesitate and directly swarmed over and drowned it. The mountain of hidden snakes that was piled up high only trembled a little before it stopped moving. That was the sea beast's Divine Soul's final struggle. It was too easy. One of the snakes that stayed outside and didn't participate in the siege soared up. It wasn't until this moment that Jiang Wang's Divine Soul appeared, and he carefully looked at the broken restriction flag. He didn't touch it, nor did he approach it. The Divine Soul dissipated in this barren and dilapidated space, and the dense group of snakes also scattered and returned to their home. After the revelry, it was a mess. Only the shredded Divine Soul of the sea beast was left, quietly scattered here. And in the eyes of the spectators, they only saw the young man leaping into the air with his sword, suddenly moving left and right, first breaking the sea beast's tentacles, then breaking its eyes, and finally stepping on it. No one could see the battle between the Divine Souls and the sea of consciousness. But the huge sea beast that was a few stories tall and had stirred up raging waves actually fell down with a loud bang. Waves that were dozens of feet high splashed up. Wasn't this a god? Jiang Wang didn't have the time to appreciate the magnificent sight of the huge sea beast falling down. With a tap of his foot, he had already left the sea beast's head. He flew over and grabbed the person who fell into the water. With a casual toss, he skillfully sent the person gently to the deck. Then he took a step in the air and arrived next to another person who was struggling. This scene seemed to have slowed down. The young man with the sword moved left and right, as if he was taking a leisurely stroll, but he saved a person with every step. He was so relaxed and carefree. Behind him, the fall of the giant sea beast became a magnificent scene that no one could forget. Damn it, I'm going to brag about it for the rest of my life. Old Zhao, who rushed out of the cabin and lay on the deck to watch the entire battle, muttered to himself, unable to calm the shock in his heart even after a long time. It wasn't that he had never seen a battle between transcendent cultivators, but sea beasts that went out of control were rare. Last time, when the jade-toed sex sea beast went out of control, he had only heard of the process. It was his first time directly facing a battle between a transcendent cultivator and a sea beast. It was also only at this moment that he suddenly felt the power of the word transcendent. It wasn't power or status. It wasn't high up. It wasn't a person above others. Those were all things that transcendent cultivators had, but they were too shallow and frivolous. They weren't as heavy as the one in front of him. What are you thinking about, Uncle Zhao? Jiang Wang landed on the deck in front of him and smiled at him. His smile was as amiable as before. Old Zhao only reacted at this moment. He was completely safe now. He hurriedly rolled and got up from the deck. The burly man was actually a little bashful. No, it's nothing. Look at how scared you are. You're worse than a woman. Old Zhao's friend crawled out of the cabin and cursed arrogantly, but the vomit at the corner of his mouth hadn't been cleaned up. Old Zhao immediately became arrogant. I'm scared. I rushed out to fight with the sea beast immediately. Where are you? Fight? Ha ha. Old Zhao's friend laughed loudly. Why are you lying on the ground? Do you think you're in a brothel? It was common for people who lived outside all year round to have foul mouths. Jiang Wang didn't care and only looked at the distant sky. A few figures flew over from a distance. They should be Summer Island's transcendent cultivators who came to deal with the sea beast that went out of control. However, they only appeared now, so their reaction was a little too slow. If Jiang Wang wasn't here, the ship under their feet obviously wouldn't have lasted until they arrived. Chapter 826. Jiang Wang ignored old Zhao's incessant bickering and asked casually, "Are there many cases of sea beasts going out of control?" "Not many. I've only ever heard of it. F***CK. There have been 2 cases in the past 2 days." Old Zhao cursed. F***CK. What kind of luck is this? F***CK. F***CK. Or F***CK. Old Zhao's friend retorted, "You're safe and sound after 2 incidents. Isn't that good luck? You F***cur. What kind of luck do you want?" Old Zhao didn't mind his cursing and scratched his head. "Oh, that makes sense." There were 3 cultivators flying over from the horizon, all of them wearing blue robes embroidered with a whale spewing out a jet of water. They were transcendent cultivators of the Furious Whale Gang. "Who are you?" The cultivator in the lead was about 30 years old. He had a short beard and an aggressive aura. As soon as he approached, he questioned Jiang Wang. "Why have you come to this part of the sea? Do you have a pass?" They'd seen the sea beast fall from afar, but they hadn't seen the details of the battle. Everyone on the deck of the keelboat was in a sorry state. Only Jiang Wang was calm and collected, which was why he was the first to question him. Jiang Wang didn't say anything. He glanced at him, then looked behind him. There were 2 cultivators behind him, 1 male and 1 female. They both looked very young. "What are you looking at, shifty-eyed? Our hall masterly is asking you a question." The young male cultivator scolded unhappily. Clearly, he suspected Jiang Wang of being interested in his fellow disciple. "Senior immortals of the Furious Whale Gang," Old Zhao hurriedly said. "Just now, it was this lord who turned the tide and saved us from danger." He was clearly worried that Jiang Wang would get into a conflict with the Furious Whale Gang, which is a local of Summer Island, so he helped explain. However, it would have been better if he hadn't said anything. The moment he did, the cultivator from the Furious Whale Gang was furious. He pointed at Jiang Wang and scolded, "Do you know how much this sea beast is worth? This is the guardian sea beast of the Furious Whale Gang. How dare you kill it? Can you bear the responsibility?" Old Zhao anxiously wanted to say something. "Immortal elder, this lord is trying to save. Did I ask you a question?" This person glared fiercely at him like a tiger or wolf. "Slap him." The burly old Zhao was silent for a moment before he raised his hand and slapped his own face. He was also a hot-tempered person. When he was outside, he often got into fights. However, the difference in status between ordinary people and transcendent cultivators was deeply ingrained in the hearts of these ordinary people. But his slap didn't land. Jiang Wang grabbed his wrist. Jiang Wang's hands were clean, fair, and well-defined. In comparison, it was not as thick as Old Zhao's arm. However, with just a light grab, Old Zhao's hand felt as if it was made of iron. He couldn't lift it at all. Fellow Taoist. Jiang Wang released his grip and walked in front of Old Zhao, shielding him behind himself. At the same time, he looked at the Furious Whale Gang cultivator. No matter how valuable this sea beast is, it's not worth a human life. When it loses control and goes berserk, it no longer has any value. It is only our enemy. Therefore, I don't know what status or position you're in to question me. Their backer, Mountain Sea Zongming, had died in an accident. Others didn't know much about it, but there was no way the Furious Whale Gang wouldn't know. However, they hadn't found a new backer yet. They needed the sea beast's combat strength, but they had made such a mistake. These Furious Whale Gang cultivators had come late to the rescue. They might have been waiting for the sea beast to go berserk before coming to subdue it. They really didn't care about the ordinary people on the Dragonbone ship. "What do you mean it lost control and went berserk?" Li Daorong angrily rebuked. "My 8-clawed sea beast only came out to play, but you killed it without any reason. Can you bear this responsibility? What sect are you from? Who are your family's elders?" As one of the 3 hall masters of the Furious Whale Gang, Li Daorong was the 8-clawed sea beast guardian. He held the 8-clawed sea beast's restriction flag in his hand. The flag was divided into 2 parts. The mother flag was in his hand, while the child flag was nailed to the sea beast's consciousness. Today, he suddenly lost contact with the mother flag. In his alarm, he came out to search for it. He had the mother flag and was familiar with the eight-clawed sea beast's habits and weaknesses. He was confident he could subdue it. However, he'd even brought along two soaring dragon realm cultivators as helpers to calm the situation as quickly as possible. Who would have thought that the eight-clawed sea beast would have already been killed? This was undoubtedly one disaster after another for the furious whale gang, whose members were in a state of panic. How was he supposed to explain this to the gang leader? He was rebuking Jiang Wang to cover up his responsibility for the sea beast's loss of control. This person was so rude. Jiang Wang naturally wouldn't give him any face. His expression immediately turned cold. The people on this ship and the destruction it caused along the way are proof that your furious whale gang's sea beast went out of control. It's fine if you don't control it well, but you're still trying to pin the blame on me? He looked at him with his sword in hand. You're asking about my background? I'm a man from Daqi's Qingyang town, a fourth-rank blue medal Jiang Wang. What advice do you have for me? Li Daorong choked. He'd thought that even if the other party was strong, he wouldn't have a good background if he mingled with these ordinary people. Summer Island was the furious whale gang's territory. If an outsider came, even a dragon would have to crouch and a tiger would have to crouch. Apart from a few major factions, who else could have a conflict with the furious whale gang on Summer Island? He'd never imagined that this young guy in front of him was actually a fourth-rank Qi official and had a hereditary and noble title. He seemed to have heard of the name Jiang Wang before. He seemed to be a somewhat famous guy, but he couldn't recall who he was. He was already a bit panicked, but he still straightened his neck and said, "So what if you're from Qi? Could the officials of the state of Qi act without distinguishing between right and wrong? You should know that this is a coastal archipelago. It's Haimin's territory." This person ignored the facts and inverted black and white. He portrayed Jiang Wang, who saved people with his sword, as a Qi villain who used his power to bully others. He even wanted to use Haimin's righteousness to suppress Jiang Wang, an outsider. He had a very good plan. It wouldn't be difficult for the furious whale gang to slander someone on Summer Island. But at this moment, someone stood up, an ordinary man, a man who braved the wind and rain to find food with his bare hands. Old Zhao walked to Jiang Wang's side. His face, which had been roughened by the sea wind, was flushed red. "I can testify." With great, shocking courage, he shouted, "The sea beasts of your furious whale gang have lost control and gone mad. Lord Jiang drew his sword and fought them for the sake of us useless civilians. What did he do wrong? This has nothing to do with Qi or Qi, Haimin or not. It has nothing to do with this. I'm a Haimin. I'll say this in front of anyone." Old Zhao's friend finally wiped the filth from the corner of his mouth and said, "I'm a Haimin too. If we're talking about indiscriminate, then this is indiscriminate." As a result, more and more people came forward. "I can testify too. I can testify. When I was waiting to die in the water, where were you Haimin masters? Lord Jiang saved me. If it wasn't for him, I wouldn't have been able to go back." The keelboat carried 26 passengers and 3 sailors. A total of 29 people stood up. No one retreated. No one was silent. What was the human heart? It was the human heart. There's no need to talk so much. Jiang Wang smiled brightly and stood in front of everyone. He spread his hands apart and spread them out. He protected the people on the boat behind him and faced the cultivator of the furious whale gang without any concealment. He was indescribably confident and high-spirited. "You want me to know? Then come. Li, why don't the 3 of you come together? Tell me what the coastal archipelago is and what the cultivators of the coastal archipelago are." Chapter 827. Behind Jiang Wang was a boat full of ordinary people who were willing to testify for him. In front of him were 3 transcendent cultivators from the furious whale gang. Below his feet was a small boat made of dragon bones. The Summer Island wasn't far away. This was the furious whale gang's headquarters. He felt like he should be terrified, but he was calm. He felt like he should shrink back, but he was determined. Jiang Wang. At this moment, Li Daorong suddenly remembered this name and who Jiang Wang was. He was the #1 soaring dragon realm cultivator in the world. He defeated the war god's last disciple, Wang Yiwu, in the same realm. He even defeated Lei Zhanxian from Tianjiao of the Lei family. His name had long spread to Deqi's Tianjiao, whose name had long spread to the nearby islands. But he'd overlooked him before. Perhaps the damage to the sea beasts had made him worried, or perhaps he was too confident because he was near the summer island. He hadn't thought about how such a young cultivator could kill an 8-clawed sea beast. But now he was on the stage and had no choice but to face it. In that case, should he accuse him of indiscriminately killing the furious whale gang's sea beast and take him down? Could he wash away his responsibility and get something from Qi? As for killing Jiang Wang from Deqi's Tianjiao, he didn't even dare to think about it. Since Jiang Wang had announced his name, the traces he'd left behind along the way were like candlelight in the dark night, incomparably clear. Once he disappeared, there was no way he could hide the news. Another problem was, even if the three of them attacked together, one inner mansion cultivator and two soaring dragon realm cultivators, could they be Jiang Wang's match? Li Daorong had to be crazy to be so confident. But if he retreated like this, he'd lose face in front of these ordinary people and his subordinates. No matter what, he was still the Furious Whale Gang's hall master, one of the few people with the highest status in the entire Summer Island. Should he swallow back the words he'd said? Just as he was in a dilemma, 3 transcendent cultivators flew over from afar. There were also 1 inner mansion cultivator and 2 soaring dragon realm cultivators. However, the one leading them was a middle-aged woman. Behind her were 2 young male cultivators. They were all wearing purple robes embroidered with the circular mark of the 5 Immortals sect. From this point, one could see the difference between the islands near the sea. In Qi, not many people dared to wear purple clothes. Jiang Wang and Cheng Gengsheng each had a purple robe bestowed by the Qi Emperor. That was proof of their meritorious service, which was extremely rare. Yo, wasn't this hall masterly? Who are you fighting with here? The middle-aged woman in the lead spoke from afar, her tone relaxed and natural. She couldn't help but feel relaxed. For many years on Summer Island, the competition between the 5 Immortals sect and the Furious Whale Gang had been ongoing. Some of the smaller sects had long been chased away or swallowed up by them. A year ago, the Furious Whale Gang had lost their backer, and today, their tamed sea beast had died as well. If that 8-clawed sea beast was used properly, its battle prowess would definitely surpass that of an ordinary inner mansion cultivator. It was a rare battle prowess resource. How could such a Furious Whale Gang compete with the 5 Immortals sect? Fan Qingqing. Before the matter was settled, the 5 Immortals sect had come to watch the show. Li Daorong felt his cheeks hurt. He sucked in a breath of cold air and said, "This has nothing to do with you. Mind your own business." Fan Qingqing, whose appearance did not have a moving name, covered her mouth and laughed. The 5 Immortals sect can take care of everything around the Summer Island. She glared at Li Daorong, her expression fierce. What? Does the Furious Whale Gang have a problem with this? When Hai Zoming had just died, the 5 Immortals sect hadn't done anything. They seemed to be observing the situation and confirming the truth. But this year, they had been pressuring the Furious Whale Gang again and again. The Furious Whale Gang hadn't been able to find a new backer for the time being. In the face of the 5 Immortals sect's aggression, they could only retreat again and again. Today, Li Daorong was no exception. He could only retort, "Let's see how long you could be so arrogant." Fan Qingqing glanced at him contemptuously, then smiled at Jiang Wang. "Little brother, where did you come from? Don't be so angry. Let go of your sword. Tell me what happened." The cultivators of the 5 Immortals sect have always been reasonable. We're different from some swindlers. You can rest assured. Jiang Wang laughed, and his hand left the hilt of his sword. "I came from Linzi to handle a case. I've disturbed your precious land. Today's matter is simple. I just killed a sea beast that went out of control to save the people on the ship. Then this guy jumped out and said that I killed their sect-protecting sea beast. He wants to teach me a lesson. Because Zhu Biqiong's master stood behind the 5 Immortals sect, he intended to interact more with the 5 Immortals sect. Therefore, his attitude was much more amiable." Fan Qingqing pretended to be surprised. "There's such a thing? Isn't Hall masterly distorting the truth? How can a furious whale gang do such a thing? How can there be such a person? Jiang Wang smiled helplessly, indicating that he didn't understand. Although the two of them had just met, they cooperated well. They slapped Li Daorong's face loudly. One Jiang Wang was already impossible to deal with. Now, another Fan Qingqing came. There was no way to resolve this matter. Li Daorong didn't want to continue being humiliated here, so he waved his sleeve. I can't be bothered to pester you endlessly. There's plenty of time in the future. Right and wrong will be judged. If he left just like that, it would have been fine, but he was still angry. Before he left, he turned his head and stared at old Zhao, who had been the first to testify. As a citizen of the sea, you're a traitor. You're very good. The Furious Whale Gang will remember you. You're on your own. With that, he prepared to leave. This was just an ordinary act of venting his anger. But Jiang Wang said in an even clearer and louder voice, I'll remember you too. I'll remember your face. I'll remember that you're the hall master of the Furious Whale Gang. Your surname is Li. This Uncle Zhao is my friend. You'd best look after him carefully. If anything happens to him in the future, regardless of whether it has anything to do with you. Jiang Wang took a step forward, and his sword aura soared into the sky. I'll kill you. What was a divine ability, internal residence? He had the power to fight with the outer residence. Jiang Wang was at least at the level of the Furious Whale Gang's gangmaster. How could an ordinary internal residence cultivator of this tiny island compare to him? Li Daorong couldn't help but take a big step back from this sudden burst of violent killing intent. He almost lost his footing in the air and fell into the sea. At that moment, he no longer cared about his face or his aura. Without a word, he flew away with his tail between his legs. The male cultivator who'd scolded Jiang Wang earlier had already tucked his tail between his legs, not uttering a single word. Now that he saw Li Daorong leave, he hurriedly followed. On the other hand, the female cultivator repeatedly turned her head and glanced at Jiang Wang several times. Seeing Jiang Wang force Li Daorong to retreat with a single sentence, Fan Qingqing smiled. You're a guest from afar. Little brother, since you've come to the Summer Island, why don't you come to my 5 immortal sect? She'd arrived late and didn't know Jiang Wang's true identity. But from Li Daorong's attitude, it wasn't hard to determine that Jiang Wang must be some important figure from Linzi, especially when the other party was in such a deadlock with the Furious Whale Gang. As an elder of the 5 immortal sect, if she didn't know how to rope him in, then she'd be too derelict in her duties. Jiang Wang smiled casually, not bashful at all. Then I'll have to trouble you. He wanted to understand the 5 immortal sect better, including the immortal character and the person behind it. Chapter 828. Fan Qingqing made an inviting gesture in the air. Jiang Wang cupped his hands towards old Zhao and the others. Everyone will meet again. Old Zhao was no longer boorish. He cupped his hands respectfully and was extremely gentle and polite. Jiang Wang stepped into the sky and flew away with the 5 immortal sect cultivators. Looking at the young cultivator's receding figure, everyone on the boat bowed deeply. It was unknown who started it first. There was a song in the offshore islands. It said that being a transcendent is good. Step by step, life and death at your fingertips. Fighting the angry sea, fighting ferocious and stubborn, exhausting wisdom and courage, defeating the chief turtle. It said that being a transcendent is good. There's no peace in the world, no peace. In fact, if transcendent cultivators really wanted peace, how could they not see it? They could give up their responsibilities. Where could they hide? Could they not be rich? For example, in the mining area of Qingyang town, Ge was only greedy for pleasure. Zhang Hai was focused on alchemy and was muddle-headed. In the environment of the transcendent cultivators resisting the Sea Clan in the offshore islands, there were many cultivators like Li Daorong who did not care about the lives of ordinary people. But at least in the overall public opinion, the transcendent cultivators still recognized their responsibility to protect ordinary people. Li Daorong and the others only delayed their rescue, but they did not dare to completely ignore it. If Jiang Wang was not here today, the Five Immortal sect and the Furious Whale Gang would have a dispute over the matter of the beast losing control and injuring people. Naturally, one side would blame and the other side would defend. It was even possible that the lawsuit would be brought to the fishing sea tower. However, for those who were truly in danger, they only had one life. No matter what they did afterward, it would be useless. Not far away from the Dragonbone boat, Jiang Wang said, "Elder Fong, please take care of the people on the boat." "Of course, it's our responsibility." Fan Qingqing was very generous. She smiled and said, "It's mainly that old Zhao, right? I think you guys seem to get along well." No matter what happened, the Five Immortal sect at least did a good job on the surface. Jiang Wang only responded with a smile. He did not deny it, nor did he say much. The reason why he did not ask the people of the Five Immortal sect to take care of it until now was because he did not want them to rely on him in front of everyone on the ship. Even if the Five Immortal sect only promised to keep them safe for a short period of time, it was still an opportunity for them to witness a drastic change in their status. This kind of opportunity would erode many people's positions and bring them into a whirlpool that they could not escape from. It was possible that he would struggle to get out, but it was more likely that he would not even have a corpse left. Living peacefully like this, relying on their hands and feet to support themselves, bragging when they were tired, and talking freely about the situation of the world. For them, perhaps this was the best outcome. With the local cultivators of the Five Immortal sects of the Summer Island as their guide, they naturally did not need to follow the flight ban of the island. Of course, in fact, Jiang Wang also had a pass to fly directly to each island. He was just deliberately walking slowly. Along the way, Fan Qingqing introduced the scenery here to Jiang Wang in a very gentle manner. Jiang Wang also responded enthusiastically, without the slightest arrogance of a nobleman from Linzi. Both of them had their own thoughts, so it could be said that they had a pleasant conversation. Her two subordinates were very calm. From the beginning to the end, they did not speak carelessly, nor did they look carelessly. They were like clay puppets. From this point of view, Fan Qingqing's ability to control her subordinates was obviously much stronger than Li Daorong's. Soon, they arrived at the encampment of the Five Immortal sect. Summer and Neverwinter had almost the same meaning. In fact, Summer Island was even bigger. However, the status of the two islands in the offshore archipelago could not be mentioned in the same breath. On Summer Island, the Five Immortals sect and the Furious Whale sect fought fiercely, but together they were not as important as Chongxian Minghe. On the offshore archipelago, the cultivators did not even need to know Chongxian Minghe. They only needed to know whose younger brother he was. Not many people would doubt his strength. Of course, although the influence of Chongxian Futu had not completely disappeared, the foundation of Neverwinter Island today was indeed built by Chongxian Minghe. In this generation, there were 4 brothers. The second brother, Ming Tu, and the third brother, Ming Shan, had passed away. The eldest brother, Chongxian Mingguang's talent and ability did not need to be mentioned. Chongxian Ming, he originally had a high chance of inheriting the title of nobility. However, he gave up everything in Linzi and went overseas alone until today. Many aristocratic families in Qi came to the offshore archipelago to develop. However, not many of them were able to truly take root and establish a stable base. Zhengenjia was one of them. Of course, from the overall situation of the offshore archipelago, Neverwinter Island's strength was nothing. If not for the fact that there was an elite Qi army stationed on Jueming Island in front of the bewildering world, these aristocratic families would have been cut off and abandoned long ago. The Five Immortal sect's base was in the northern part of Summer Island. It was indeed further from the sea area where the 8-clawed sea beast went out of control. No wonder they took longer to arrive. In the entire Five Immortal sect, there were 4 elders in the Intermansion realm. Compared to the Furious Whale Gang, which had 3 Intermansion Realm Hall Masters, there was indeed one more. However, the Furious Whale Gang had more ordinary members, and their business was more prosperous. Both sides had tamed sea beasts and also had powerful backers from the fishing sea tower. Therefore, they had always been on par. It was only during this period of time that the difference between them gradually became apparent. As one of the 4 elders of the 5 immortal sect, Fan Qingqing was naturally unimpeded in the sect space. As she led the way, she introduced casually, "This is the place where the disciples practice their Tao. If Brother Jiang is free, you can give some pointers later." After chatting for a while, she already knew who Jiang Wang was. Her words were even more cordial and passionate. "I don't dare to give pointers. Let's exchange pointers." Jiang Wang did not reject immediately. After all, he would talk about it later. He looked around and pretended to ask casually, "I still don't know why your sect is called the 5 immortal sect. Is it because the sect master and the 4 elders add up to exactly 5 experts?" Fan Qingqing laughed when she heard this. "Of course not. Firstly, how can we call ourselves immortals? Secondly, if there is an additional 5th elder, how can we be considered? Can we change our name again?" Her words implied that she wanted to rope him in. However, it was clear that the position of an elder in the 5 immortal sect was not attractive to Jiang Wang. Therefore, she expressed it very vaguely. It was just a little convenient. It would be better if she could persuade him, but it was also fine if she couldn't. Jiang Wang shook his head. "I guess I made a wild guess. I'm ashamed." The 5 immortals refer to the 5 senses: form, sound, smell, taste, and touch. They are the important doorway for the human body to come into contact with the heavens and earth. They must pass through to gain insight into the extraordinary. Therefore, they're called immortals to honor their positions. Fan Qingqing explained, "Although our 5 immortal sect's foundation is small, our legacy is very long. It can be traced back to thousands of years ago. Form, sound, smell, taste, and touch were the senses of sight, hearing, smell, taste, and touch. Sects like the 5 immortal sect were mostly left behind by cultivators during the time when they went to the sea. It was not impossible for some cultivators to have ancient legacies. However, to Jiang Wang, it was meaningless. Although using the 5 senses to become the 5 immortals sounded very boastful. However, the 5 immortal sect could only be tyrannical in the Summer Island. There were only a few big cats and small cats in the sect. It was obvious that their legacies were not strong. He was interested previously because he wanted to know if this sect was related to the 9 great immortal palaces. After all, there was already a cloud-top immortal palace in the 5 residences sea. He wanted to see what the other immortal palaces were like. If it could help him repair his own immortal palace and restore the cloud-top immortal palace to its peak state, it would be best. If he could gather all 9 great immortal palaces, it would be good to just think about it. As for Fan Qingqing, if she boasted at the top of her voice, it could only be traced back to thousands of years ago. It was really impossible. Jiang Wang extinguished his thoughts and changed the topic. He probed, "When I was in Linzi, I heard that the Fishing Sea Tower was the biggest sect in the offshore islands. Along the way, I heard a lot of things. I wonder what Elder Fong thinks about this." Chapter 829. The Ocean Fishing Tower is a well-deserved strong sect in the offshore islands. But in terms of being the dominant sect, Fan Qingqing gave Jiang Wang a meaningful look. Setting aside the extremely powerful and revered Mog for now, Mog is one of the most powerful figures in the world. Isn't there cheese, Juming Island as well? Give up life and death to decide the light and the dark. How bold is that? Jiang Wang had done a lot of research before coming to the offshore islands, so he naturally knew about this saying. Give up life and death to decide the light and the dark. This was what Jiang Mengxiong, the military god, said. It was also the origin of the name Juming Island. He personally wrote a new name for the island. And Chi's strong army did indeed decide the light and the dark on Juming Island. Ever since the Chi army was stationed on Juming Island, no marine race had ever taken a step into the bewildering world. People said, "In front of this island, life and death are decided. Behind this island, all is light." This was also the second explanation for the name Juming Island. The key to the problem was Fan Qingqing's attitude. Granny Bijou was behind the Five Immortals sect, so this small sect should be under the influence of Fishing Sea Tower. But when she mentioned Juming Island, her words were ambiguous, as if she yearned for it. After suppressing the furious whale gang, the Five Immortals sect had other thoughts. Did they not want to be controlled by Granny Bijou anymore? Or was it just Fan Qingqing herself who was not satisfied with the current situation in the Five Immortals sect? Jiang Wang thought about it in his heart. Before he knew the full situation, he would neither express his desire to get close to nor alienate her. I naturally yearn for Juming Island, but I haven't seen it yet. The heavens took pity on him. He could not represent Qi's opinion. Although he was the so-called Tianjiao of the Qi, his foundation in Qi was still very shallow. If there was any prestige, it was mostly due to Cheng Gongsheng's influence. However, if Fan Qingqing could play a role in the rescue of Zhu Biqiang, it was not impossible for him to arrange for her through Jiang Wuyo. Presumably, Huaying Palace wouldn't mind having an extra force overseas for no reason. If there's a chance, I'll go take a look, Fan Qingqing said ambiguously. He didn't know if she was referring to Jiang Wang or herself. It all depended on how the listener interpreted it. Jiang Wang smiled and said, "There will be a chance." Elder, while they were talking, a female disciple of the Five Immortals sect hurried over. She approached Fan Qingqing and was about to whisper in her ear. Fan Qingqing glared at her and reprimanded. "If you have something to say, just say it. Little brother Jiang is not an outsider." Even though he knew that these were just polite words, it still made him feel comfortable. The female disciple could only say with grievance, "I can't even enter the palace. The sect master is currently receiving an important guest and is unable to meet Lord Jiang for the time being." It was unknown when Fan Qingqing had made the arrangements. She had sent someone to inform the sect leader of the Five Immortals sect of the arrival of Jiang Wang in advance. This was undoubtedly a form of respect for Jiang Wang. However, the female disciple did not deliver the message. What important guest? Fan Qingqing frowned and said unhappily, "The person I invited is from the Qi's Tianjiao." This elder Fong was really good at welcoming guests and sending them off. "I heard that it's Granny Bijou," the female disciple said. This was too much of a coincidence. Jiang Wang's eyelids twitched slightly. She was actually the backer of the Five Immortals sect. No wonder the sect master of the Five Immortals sect did not even open the door to the palace. Granny Bijou is naturally an important guest, but little brother Jiang is also important. How can the Duanxing Palace not open? Fan Qingqing acted as if she felt wronged for Jiang Wang and shouted. The sect master did not allow anyone to disturb him, so he naturally did not know that little brother Jiang was here. "I will personally lead little brother Jiang over." Duanxing Palace was one of the Five Immortals of the Five Immortals sect. The Duanxing Palace was also the face of the Five Immortals sect. The most important guests were always welcomed in this palace. However, Jiang Wang did not move. He shook his head and chuckled. "Since the sect master is receiving a guest, I will not disturb him." Did Granny Bijou really just arrive at the Five Immortals sect? Did Fan Qingqing really not know about Granny Bijou's visit? She invited Qi's Jiang Wang back to the sect's encampment as a guest. Was she really that naive? However, no matter what Fan Qingqing's intentions were, Jiang Wang would not rashly step forward and be used by others. If he followed them, they might use his background in the state of Qi to do something, especially when facing Granny Bijou. If they used Qi's name to negotiate, they did not need Jiang Wang's consent at all. When the time came, the Five Immortals sect would benefit from it and get better conditions. Jiang Wang would gain nothing except for Granny Bijou's hostility. One must always be wary of others. He did not trust Fan Qingqing, even if she called him little brother and was as close as a biological sister. Fan Qingqing glanced at Jiang Wang and seemed to be surprised by his calmness. It was normal for young people like him to show off in front of people and show off in Tianjiao. How could he be inferior to an elder of the sea fishing tower? However, she still made a final effort. "Little brother Jiang, please come over here. What's there to bother you about? Listen to me. Today, the Duanxing Hall will be open for you." Jiang Wang still did not move. He only smiled and said, "Forget it." His voice was soft, but his attitude was clear. He didn't want to get in touch with Granny Bijou, but now might not be a good time. Seeing Jiang Wang's determination, Fan Qingqing could not be too deliberate. She only smiled and said, "Then I'll take you to the Zhengshang Hall to listen to the sound of the tide. What do you think?" There were 5 halls in the 5 Immortals sect. They were Duanqing Hall, Zhengsheng, smelling, lingering taste, and tactile. Imitating the 5 senses and worshipping the 5 Immortals were all important places in the 5 Immortals sect. Jiang Wang did not refuse. "Then please lead the way, Elder Fong." In the encampment of the 5 Immortals sect, the 5 halls faintly formed a fan shape. The Duanqing Hall was in the middle, innermost. The Zhengshang Hall was on the left, the Smelling Hall on the right, the Lingering Taste Hall on the left, and the Touch Hall on the right. The Zhengshang Hall was built on the cliff, and it was closest to the sea. Because of the special structure of the hall, the moment one entered the hall, one could hear the sound of the tide rolling. The sound was loud and powerful. It sounded closer and deeper than when one heard on the ship. It even reminded Jiang Wang of the experience of the overturn, the sea's tribulation in the red makeup mirror. It was no wonder that the hall was named Zhengsheng. It was also no wonder that Fan Qingqing said that Jiang Wang wanted to listen to the sound of the tide. This kind of Zhengsheng Hall was definitely presentable. The great Tao was formless, and it could treat fellow immortals well. One's auditory senses were liberated in the Zhengshang Hall. One could return to the original and get close to nature. Even when he was talking to Fan Qingqing, Jiang Wang felt as if he had just heard her original voice and got to know her again. Jiang Wang originally had a strong first impression and did not have much expectations for the 5 Immortals sect. However, when he entered the Zhengshang Hall and heard the Zhengshang Hall, his impression immediately changed. Using the 5 senses as the 5 Immortals, it was really mysterious, especially the sound of the tide. When the sound of the tide entered his ears, Jiang Wang was eager to give it a try. He thought of his 8 tones flame sparrow. Up until now, the 8 tones flame sparrow, which had once stunned everyone on Mount Yinwu, had been fighting less and less. Although it was his original Dao technique, it was not scorching enough compared to the true Samadhi fire. Compared to the human Dao sword style, it was not concise enough. Using it in battle was often not the best choice. It was not that Jiang Wang wanted to abandon it, but could not keep up with the current battle rhythm. This was a real surprise. The long-lost inspiration for Dao techniques surged at this moment. Chapter 830. Little Brother Jiang. In the main hall, Fan Qingqing smiled and said, "Your name is very famous in the offshore islands. Everyone says that you're the best among the younger generation in Qi. That's too much. Qi is full of talented people. How can I accept that?" Jiang Wang replied, but his mind was intertwined in the collision of inspirations. They intertwined, and happened. The faint spiritual light was evolving rapidly. What was the sound? What was the sound of the tide? How did the 8 sounds intersect? How did the flame sparrow whistle? I think you can accept it. Others may not know the power of the 8-clawed sea beast, but how can the 5 Immortals sect and the furious whale gang not know? Even if Li Daorong had the mother flag, he would have to put in a lot of effort. I don't know why he dares to provoke you. Fan Qingqing chatted while giving Li Daorong a thorn in his side. But the furious whale gang is used to being arrogant. It's inevitable that they'll be presumptuous. Oh, is that so? Jiang Wang said perfunctorily. Fan Qingqing glanced at him and asked tentatively, "Speaking of which, I still don't know little brother Zhang's master. Some news from Linzi has spread to the sea, and it's all in pieces. There are all kinds of rumors. I heard that. Your master Xiong Tu's favorite disciple? How could I have the honor?" Jiang Wang smiled and continued to say perfunctorily, "I just received some guidance. No wonder little brother Jiang is so powerful." Fan Qingqing continued to flatter him. Master Xiong Tu can be considered the best in the eastern region. Many people agree that he's a real person. Oh, he's indeed powerful. Jiang Wang continued to say perfunctorily, "The fact that he can guide little brother Jiang is enough to show your talent. Maybe you'll be another Xiong too in the future. I wouldn't dare. Jiang Wang's perfunctory words were too insincere. Even if Fan Qingqing could chat, it was difficult to continue. Little brother Jiang seems to be tired and not in the mood to talk. Or is the Five Immortals sect not a good host? No. Jiang Wang simply sat on the chair and closed his eyes. I enjoy the sound of the tide. He stopped talking nonsense and ignored her. At this moment, the flickering spiritual light drew out the entire picture. All of his emotions surged into one place and turned into a sigh in his heart. It was a sigh of satisfaction. In his heart, the flame sparrows rose and chirped. Sparrow cries were divided into 8 types, which were the 8 types of music. The 8 notes converged like a trickle of water flowing together. It was completely natural as they played the sound of the tide together. The waves were roaring. This voice came from the overturning sea's tribulation and also from the hall of righteousness. The 8 notes, tidal wave, flame sparrows burning the sea. The tide was the sound tide, and the sea was the sea of fire. The flame sparrow urged the 8 notes, and the 8 notes were born together. Jiang Wang opened his eyes. He had mastered the 8 notes, burning the sea, an A-grade, upper-grade Tao technique. Although it was only in his mind, he had already succeeded. However, there was no need to show it in front of the Five Immortals sect and Fan Qingqing. The threshold of A-grade Tao technique was already at the outer building. Due to the fact that it was a self-created Taoist technique, it was able to be used at a higher level. Jiang Wang did not hesitate and immediately engraved this Taoist technique into the second inner mansion. He did not need to consider the problem of familiarity with the Taoist technique he created. No matter how many times others practiced and familiarized themselves with it, how could they be as clear as the Creator? At this moment, he finally had Taoist techniques at the outer building level in addition to supernatural powers and celestial techniques. Going to any of the 5 main halls of the Five Immortals sect would not give him such benefits. It just so happened that it was the Hall of Righteousness and the Sound of the Tide. It just so happened that Jiang Wang had gone through the overturning sea's tribulation, and it just so happened that Jiang Wang himself had the 8 notes flame sparrow, which was an original Taoist technique that blended the sound of killing. That was why the spiritual light was born. There is nothing more than the so-called lucky coincidence. However, when the spiritual light was born, it could only be captured by those who were prepared. Fan Qingqing was a little stunned at the sight. Why did this young man seem different in the blink of an eye? His eyes seemed to be clearer, and his aura seemed to be more high-spirited. Was this what it meant to be a genius? One could become stronger in the blink of an eye? Elder Fong, Jiang Wang, was in a good mood and took the initiative to ask, is there a chance to spread the construction method of the Hall of Righteousness? I like the sound of the Hall of Righteousness and want to build a hall in Linzi. And I hit it off at first sight. Originally, I shouldn't decline Brother Zhang's request. Fan Qingqing sighed in embarrassment and said, but this involves the secrets of our sect. It really can't be spread. It was unknown if she was really embarrassed or if she sensed that Jiang Wang had gained some benefits in the hall and wanted to raise the price. How valuable would something that was useful to a Qi cultivator in Tianjiao be? How much could she exploit from the Qi court? Just thinking about it made her feel tempted. However, Jiang Wang immediately said, then forget it. A gentleman doesn't take what others love. He had already mastered the 8 notes, burning seas, so he did not need the Hall of Righteousness. The reason why he asked was purely to enjoy it. He really enjoyed the feeling of listening to the Hall of Righteousness. It was completely different from the usual sound. However, if it was just for enjoyment, he could not offer a price. After all, he was born poor, unlike Yin Fu, a rich young master who was born with jade in his mouth and pearls in his hands. He only wanted to do things according to his heart and did not ask for a price. Then what? As an elder of the Five Immortals sect, Fan Qingqing had lived for 42 years and had seen all kinds of people. However, this was the first time she had encountered such a Tianjiao. Which Tianjiao did not treat money like dirt. Which Tianjiao did not only want to be happy and not ask for value. Which one did not buy a smile with 1,000 gold coins? Why did this Jiang Wang shrink back after encountering such a small setback? Why don't you throw Tao origin stones at me? Cultivation methods and secret techniques are also fine. She coughed with difficulty and said, Actually, this matter is not completely unnegotiable. At this time, an old voice clearly transmitted into the Hall of Righteousness. It interrupted Fan Qingqing's sail plan. I heard that there's a noble in Linzi who is going to the sea. I have come to meet him. This voice returned to its original form in the Hall of Righteousness, revealing the powerful aura of the owner of the voice. A name immediately appeared in Jiang Wang's mind. Granny Bijou. He did not go to the Hall of Righteousness, but she took the initiative to come to the Hall of Righteousness. Why did Granny Bijou come to him not long after he sat down? Wasn't she having a discussion with the leader of the Five Immortals sect in the Hall of Righteousness? Was it because Granny Bijou had too much control over the Five Immortals sect? Or Jiang Wang glanced at Fan Qingqing with a faint smile. For some reason, Fan Qingqing actually felt a little uncomfortable from this gaze. It was as if the secret in the bottom of her heart had been seen through. This was a difficult character to deal with. She must not underestimate him because of his age. Not only was his talent terrifying, but his combat power was also amazing. She secretly trembled in her heart, but she stood up and hurried a few steps out of the hall. She respectfully greeted, Granny, why are you here? From the door of the hall, an old woman with a round face full of wrinkles walked in. She was dressed very plainly, like an ordinary old woman that could be seen everywhere in a small village. Only she was holding a dragon-headed cane and walking slowly. Her steps were very light, but there was a sense of urgency that came from nowhere. Behind her was another old woman with mixed black and white hair. She was wearing a purple robe with clouds and clouds. She should be the leader of the Five Immortals sect. Looking at her following closely, it was obvious that it was not her idea to come to the Hall of Righteousness. The elder of the Five Immortals sect, Fan Qingqing, greeted her politely, as if she was afraid that Granny Bijou would misunderstand. Jiang Wang also took the initiative to stand up very politely. However, as soon as Granny Bijou entered the hall, she waved her hand and said, You can go and do other things first. Let me, Granny, and this young man from Linzi have a chat. She actually drove out the higher-ups of the Five Immortals sect in the main hall of the Five Immortals sect. Chapter 831. Then we won't disturb you anymore. Granny, please do as you wish. The sect master of the Five Immortals sect, the old woman in the purple robe, did not resist at all. She really turned around and left. Elder Fan Qingqing's expression was still natural and respectful. Since Granny has ordered, we will naturally obey. While speaking, she intentionally or unintentionally glanced at Jiang Wang. Honorable guests, please take your time. All the higher-ups of the Five Immortals sect immediately retreated. Immediately, only Jiang Wang and Granny Bijou were left in the tall main hall. Jiang Wang had already expected to meet Granny Bijou on this trip to the Near Sea Islands. After all, the matter of rescuing Zhu Biqiang could not be avoided by her master. Even a large part of the reason he came to the Five Immortals sect as a guest was because he heard that Granny Bijou was behind the Five Immortals sect. However, he really did not expect to meet her so early. What kind of person was Granny Bijou? From Zhu Biqiang's previous occasional descriptions, this old woman's character should be relatively strong. Zhu Biqiang was somewhat afraid of her, but she was very good to her disciple. As an elder with real power, her position in the fishing sea tower was needless to say. After Zhu Siyao was almost half crippled, Granny Bijou still fought for the opportunity to enter the heavenly secret realm for her. This proved that Granny Bijou was really good to her disciple. Moreover, Zhu Biqiang had previously returned to the island and reported how Zhu Siyao was framed. Although Hu Xiaoming was dead, he was quickly removed from the list. Granny Bijou's protection of her disciple could be seen from this. And according to Jiang Wang's current first contact, Granny Bijou was undoubtedly a very powerful person, As soon as she appeared, she firmly controlled the situation with just a few words. On the one hand, she drove out all the higher-ups of the Five Immortals sect in the main hall of the Five Immortals sect, showing Jiang Wang her strong control over the Five Immortals sect. If Jiang Wang really represented someone in Qi and had some thoughts about the Five Immortals sect, it would be unavoidable for her to reconsider. On the other hand, she chose to personally contact Jiang Wang, but excluded the higher-ups of the Five Immortals sect. This completely did not give the Five Immortals sect a chance to take advantage of her. She could personally observe the purpose of Jiang Wang's visit to the Five Immortals sect without being disturbed. On the contrary, Fan Qingqing and the others, who were outside the hall and had no idea what they were talking about, were afraid of taking action. They didn't know what to say and what not to say, unless Jiang Wang or the power behind Jiang Wang already had a close and firm cooperation with the Five Immortals sect. Apart from that, all the intentions that were only in the early stages of contact should be disintegrated. Another thing that Jiang Wang noticed was that Granny Bijou was casually shouting at the higher-ups of the Five Immortals sect. This meant that she was no longer just the backer of the Five Immortals sect. It was not just a matter of exchanging benefits. Instead, she had begun to control this sect and had begun to completely turn the Five Immortals sect into her subordinates. Perhaps this was the reason why Fan Qingqing's attitude towards Juming Island was ambiguous. One old and one young. Both of them had their own observations and considerations. Out of politeness, Jiang Wang greeted her first. "Granny, please take a seat. How can the host sit before the guest?" Granny Bijou said meaningfully, "Please take a seat first." She obviously regarded herself as the host. Jiang Wang smiled and didn't explain to the old woman who was afraid that others would snatch her territory. He simply sat in his original position. Then he said, "Granny, what do you want to talk to me about?" Granny Bijou walked over slowly and sat on the main seat. After listening to the sound of the waves for a while, she suddenly sighed. "I'm old," Jiang Wang thought to himself. "Isn't this obvious? The wrinkles on your face are so deep that they can kill flies." But he wouldn't say it so rudely. At the same time, he was too lazy to flatter her. Seeing that Jiang Wang didn't say anything, Granny Bijou continued, "Seeing a young man like you in his prime inevitably reminds me of the past. But even then, there weren't many young people who could be like you. I'm just young and impetuous. How can I bear such praise?" Jiang Wang asked, "Granny, do you know me? How can I not know Jiang Wang from Qingyang Town? I know who you are as soon as I hear the name." At this point, Granny Bijou let out a long sigh. "After all, my disciple, Bai Qiong, often mentioned it to me. She was the one who brought up the topic of Zhu Biqiong first." But Jiang Wang didn't respond immediately. Instead, he said, "You were young, and I was old. Everyone in the world and everything in the world is the same. Tianjiao, talent, it's just a matter of a moment." He thought that Granny Bijou only knew that someone from Qi City came to visit through her spies in the Five Immortals sect. Or Fan Qingqing deliberately released the news. Granny Bijou's purpose of coming to Zhengshang Hall should be to protect her foundation and not let outsiders have a chance to interfere with the Five Immortals sect. But now, why did she mention Zhu Biqiong? Did she know his purpose of coming to the coastal islands? Jiang Wang needed time to think and didn't want to show his attitude too early, so he pretended not to hear Zhu Biqiong's name. Granny Bijou sighed again. "There aren't many young people like you who can see things clearly. It's really rare. No wonder Biqiong always mentions you." The old woman always sighed, as if she was trapped in a heavy heart and couldn't extricate herself. She kept mentioning Zhu Biqiong. Jiang Wang finally couldn't avoid it anymore. "Actually, I came to the coastal islands this time not only to carry out official business, but also to see fellow Taoist Zhu. How is she now? How else can she be?" The old woman's tone was sad and low. "She's just waiting for death." She changed the topic. "Biqiong is really lucky to be able to make a friend like you in Qi City. You also helped with Hu Xiaoming's matter. Unfortunately, killing Hu Xiaoming was just to fulfill a promise." Jiang Wang's eyes narrowed. "Unfortunately?" Granny Bijou sighed again. It's hard to violate the sect rules. Even though I have some status and became an elder over the years, I can't control such a big event as the sea sacrifice. I can only watch Xiong. At this point, she was already choking with sobs. Her cultivation was personally destroyed by me. Her voice was mournful and her expression was mournful. Anyone who saw her would almost cry. Especially in the main hall, it was very infectious. Thinking of Zhu Biqiang's situation, Jiang Wang couldn't help but feel sad. But at this moment, he suddenly remembered something. It was something he hadn't thought of before, something Cheng Gongsheng had overlooked because he didn't know Zhu Biqiang well enough. Hai Zongming, as an elder with real power in Fishing Sea Pavilion, should have kept his movements a secret. How did Zhu Biqiang, with her intelligence, know about this? Of course, Zhu Biqiang wasn't a fool, but she definitely wasn't that intelligent. In the past, she had been protected too well by her sister, Zhu Suyao, so she was simple and ignorant of the world. How did such a simple girl know about Hai Zongming's movements? And how did she hide it from the powerful Granny Bijou? He and Cheng Gongsheng both knew that Zhu Biqiang's cultivation was destroyed and she was sent to the sea sacrifice because she violated the sect rules and indirectly caused the death of the sect's elder, Hai Zongming. Their focus had always been on how to pry open Fishing Sea Pavilion sect rules, how to effect the sea sacrifice, and how to save Zhu Biqiang. However, they had neglected the original reason for this matter, why Zhu Biqiang was able to pass on information about Hai Zongming to him. Chapter 832. Jiang Wang's momentary absent-mindedness didn't escape Granny Bijou's turbid eyes. "What are you thinking about?" she asked. "Are you resenting me?" As she asked her question, Jiang Wang thought about his own thoughts. Hai Zongming wanted to kill Qi and Tianjiao. Not many people in the Fishing Sea Tower would be willing to support him on the surface. It must be a secret act. Moreover, Hai Zongming came for the Red Mirror. Since he was here to seize the treasure, he would pay more attention to secrecy. With Zhu Biqiang's naivety, how could she have noticed it in advance? Hai Zongming couldn't have told her personally that he was going to kill Jiang Wang. Hurry up and inform him, right? And she was so eager to pass on the message. She must be very sure of her source of information. What source of information could she have? Even if Jiang Wang and Zhu Biqiang were friends, he couldn't go against his conscience and say that she was smarter than others and could easily see through people's hearts. She was just a very naive little girl who had been too well protected in the past. And this time, there was Xia Island to see, the competitive relationship between the Furious Whale Gang and the Five Immortals sect. After Hai Zongming's death, the Five Immortals sect suppressed the situation. Granny Bijou's control over the Five Immortals sect, so much so that Elder Fan Qingqing of the Five Immortals sect showed the intention to get close to Juming Island. If Granny Bijou was the one who told Zhu Biqiang about Hai Zongming's whereabouts. In that case, everything seemed to be connected. No, this was the answer. Zhu Biqiang inadvertently became the victim of the struggle between Granny Bijou and Hai Zongming. Granny Bijou used Zhu Biqiang to inform the state of Qi. She didn't think that Jiang Wang could kill Hai Zongming, but it was easy for Qi to deal with Hai Zongming. After borrowing Jiang Wang's hands to kill Hai Zongming, he then pushed Zhu Biqiang to her death, completely removing himself from the blame. This should be the truth of the matter. The reason why the Five Immortals sect didn't take action against the Furious Whale Gang immediately after Hai Zongming's death was proof of Granny Bijou's self-concealment. Thinking about it again, was it really a coincidence that the Furious Whale Gang's guardian sea beast lost control? Was it also the work of Granny Bijou, who was on the Summer Island right now? The more she thought about it, the more she hated the old woman in front of her. Jiang Wang's killing intent was aroused, but he only said with a slightly gloomy expression, "I can't blame anyone else. I can only blame myself for not considering fellow Taoist Zhu's safety when I killed Hai Zongming. If I had known earlier, I would have only captured him." These words were empty words. Hai Zongming had come for his red makeup mirror, so it was impossible for him not to kill him. You could be a thief for 1,000 days, but you can't guard against a thief for 1,000 days. But if I had known what would happen today, after killing Hai Zongming, he should have brought Zhu Biqiang to Qi. That way, he could have avoided the current difficult situation. But who knows? I never thought that Hai Zongming would be so narrow-minded. Hu Xiaoming deserved his punishment, but he still wanted to bully the weak and kill him. Alas! Granny Bijou heaved another long sigh. From the various performances of Hu Xiaoming and Hai Zongming, coupled with the extraordinary nature of the red makeup mirror, Jiang Wang was almost certain that not many people in the Fishing Sea Tower knew about this treasure. Otherwise, the Fishing Sea Tower wouldn't have remained silent until now. As for the matter of him killing Hai Zongming, people generally believe that Hai Zongming wanted to avenge his disciple, Hu Xiaoming. Maybe it was because of the relationship between master and disciple, or maybe it was because of his own face. In short, no one connected it to the red makeup mirror. Granny, you also know that this matter was caused by Hu Xiaoming. Biqiang, her sister, and I were all victims of this disaster. Can't we really save her? Jiang Wang looked sincere. I came to see her for the last time, just in case there is a way to save her. I am willing to pay all my wealth just to save her life. Granny, do you have a way? You are really a good child who values friendship and righteousness. Granny Bijou sighed. I also want to save Biqiang, but she violated the sect's rules after all. If there's a way, how can I not use it? I watched Suyao and Biqiang grow up. Suyao is long gone, and now Biqiang. Biqiang is also. She couldn't continue. However, only she herself knew how much of her feelings were genuine. Jiang Wang looked sad and finally gritted his teeth. If I can't save her, I hope I can make her suffer less. Granny, please think of a way. Don't let her suffer too much. His expression was very painful, as if he really had no choice but to do this. Granny Bijou was moved. Okay. Granny will think of a way. Jiang Wang got up and bowed deeply to Granny Bijou seriously. If there is anything I can do, please let me know. Granny Bijou reached out to support him. Good child, you don't have to do this. Her wrinkled hands supported the tall and straight young man. One old and one young. One sat upright, and the other bowed deeply. At this moment, neither of them could see the other's eyes. Jiang Wang looked at the ground, his eyes full of murderous intent. He was sure that it was Granny Bijou who sent Zhu Biqiang to her death. So if it was not today, it would be in the future. He would definitely find a chance to kill this person. Granny Bijou looked at the young man's black hair and thought that he really wanted to save Zhu Biqiang. She could see that what Jiang Wang said about making Zhu Biqiang suffer less was just a cover-up. With her many years of experience, she could be sure that Jiang Wang came to the coastal islands to save Zhu Biqiang. This was unbelievable. Where did a person with magical power get the courage to save people at the Tianya stage? Where did a young man get the arrogance to challenge the rules of the sea sacrifice? Did he really think that he was omnipotent just because he was praised as Tianjiao? Only a genius who survived was a genius. If it were anyone else, even if it was a god-descending stage powerhouse, Granny Bijou would strongly doubt her judgment. But the person bowing deeply in front of her was a young man. The spirit of a young man was supposed to disregard everything. So interesting. Granny Bijou thought to herself, what did Hai Zongming want to kill him? Was it the secret that made him Tianjiao? On the other hand, what kind of commotion could a Qi Tianjiao cause if he tried his best to save people at the Tianya stage? With Jiang Wang's strength and connections, was he qualified to start a bigger dispute? What could he possibly gain from it? There were too many things to think about. After the bow, Jiang Wang was helped up. The old man and the young man looked at each other and saw the sympathy in each other's eyes. Sigh. They sighed together again, just like the sound of the tide in the main hall clatter. How long the old man and the young man talked in the main hall was how torturous it was for the higher-ups of the Five Immortals sect waiting outside. Among the 4 elders of the Five Immortals sect, one was guarding the sea beast, and the other 2 were out. Only Fan Qingqing and sect leader Su Jilan were sitting in the Duanqing Hall. They were sitting very steadily, and their expressions were very normal. But they were so quiet that they did not say a word. Their postures were calm, as if they were resting. But every bit of their attention was focused on the main hall. What were Granny Bijou and that Tianjiao from the Qi called Jiang Wang talking about? How was the discussion? Especially at the critical moment when the Five Immortals sect might undergo a drastic change. Facing such a person who was difficult to offend, endless guesses and conjectures made one anxious. Chapter 833. Meeting young friend Jiang today has made me feel much younger. Jiang Wang has benefited a lot from Granny's teachings. An old man and a young man walked out of the Zhongshan Hall, talking and laughing. Su Zhilan and Fan Qingqing, the sect leader of the Five Immortals sect, who had been informed, left Duanxing Hall almost immediately. They hurried over to greet Granny Bijou and Jiang Wang before they were far away. There's still some time until then. Granny Bijou glossed over Zhu Biqiong's matter and asked kindly, "Where do you plan to stay? Why don't you return to the Isle of Huai with me and let me be your host?" To tell you the truth, Jiang Wang still has a case to solve in the capital city, so he needs to stay on other islands for a while. He can't go to the Isle of Huai so soon. Jiang Wang lied without batting an eyelid. Although the Golden Needle case was closed, Granny Bijou couldn't prove that he had other tasks. Granny Bijou shook her head. I understand. Young people should work harder. When you reach my age, you won't have the time or energy to work hard even if you want to. Look at what you're saying. I think you'll reach the divine arrival in the next few years. Jiang Wang also actively played the role of a polite and docile junior. You have plenty of time and energy. Granny Bijou's words seemed to hit the nail on the head. She smiled and her wrinkles softened. Thank you for your kind words. If she didn't want to reach the divine arrival, break the lifespan limit, and lock her cultivation, why would she bother to fight so hard? Who wouldn't envy her for cultivating steadily and wholeheartedly? But could she do it without resources? Could she achieve Tao without fighting? Even if she knew that Jiang Wang was just flattering her, she really liked what he said. Su Zhilan and Fan Qingqing, the leader of the Five Immortals sect, welcomed them at this time. It's great that you two hit it off so well. Su Zhilan said, I'll hold a banquet and invite the two of you. It's also good for the disciples of the Five Immortals sect to meet you and learn from you. What do you think? No. Granny Bijou waved her hand, refusing to do her the honor. There are a lot of things going on in the building. I have to go back now. She looked at Jiang Wang and asked, Where's Jiang Wang? He was still worried about Jiang Wang and was afraid that he would cause trouble in the Five Immortals sect, so he forced him to leave. It seemed that he was very concerned about the Five Immortals sect, this fat piece of meat in his bowl. Jiang Wang sneered inwardly, but on the surface he said amiably, I'm also leaving. After all, I have a heavy responsibility on my shoulders, and I dare not neglect it. Granny Bijou chuckled and ignored Su Zhilan and Fan Qingqing's repeated invitations. She only took a good look at Jiang Wang, and her gaze stopped at the side of his waist. Your jade pendant is quite exquisite. The white jade pendant hanging around his waist was the New Year's gift that Jiang Anan had bought for him. Jiang Wang looked down and smiled with a relaxed expression. It's nothing valuable. It's a gift from an old friend. It's just a memento. Such an ordinary jade pendant would naturally not attract the attention of cultivators. However, Granny Bijou did not say anything about it. She just rummaged in her chest and took out a piece of ocean blue jade pendant. She handed it over with a kind face. It's our first meeting, so I don't have a good gift for you. This jade pendant is not valuable. However, if you need anything, you can bring it to the Isle of Huai to find me. My words still carry some weight in this offshore archipelago. If she wanted to give this gift, she could have done it in the Zhongshan Hall. Taking it out now was nothing more than another layer of warning. It was a warning to Su Zhilan and Fan Qingqing. She was telling them how close her relationship with Jiang Wang had become. She was telling them to give up on other thoughts as soon as possible. None of the people present didn't understand. Jiang Wang was naturally flattered and accepted it. I dare not refuse a gift from an elder. Therefore, Jiang Wang shamelessly accepts it. Su Zhilan and Fan Qingqing's expressions were also normal, as if they never had any other thoughts and were indifferent to the scene in front of them. Seeing you reminds me of my poor disciple. Sigh. Granny Bijou was sad again before she said, I'm leaving now. She turned around and stepped into the air. I'll send you off. Su Jilan, the leader of the Five Immortals sect, quickly followed. Jiang Wang knew that if he didn't leave, Granny Bijou wouldn't really fly away. Therefore, he also rose into the air, but in a different direction from Granny Bijou. Thank you for your hospitality. Jiang Wang also takes his leave. Fan Qingqing followed him. I'll send little brother Jiang off. Granny Bijou went straight east, back to the Isle of Huai. In order to avoid her, Jiang Wang deviated a little to the southeast. Soon, the Isle of Huai was already far away from their sight. Granny Bijou and Su Jilan's figures were already out of sight. Even if you accompany a friend for 1,000 miles, you still have to part in the end. Elder Fong, please go back, Jiang Wang said. Fan Qingqing bit her lips. She seemed to want to say something, but she hesitated. After all, Granny Bijou seemed to get along well with Jiang Wang. If she rashly befriended him now, she might be betrayed. Little brother Jiang, take care. Come to the Five Immortals sect often when you have time. In the end, she just said politely, of course. Elder Fong is kind and easygoing. The Isle of Huai is beautiful, and the Five Immortals of your sect are ingenious. If I have a chance, I really want to come and listen to the music again. Jiang Wang laughed and threw out a piece of bait. Bring my friends with you. Jiang Wuyo and Cheng Geng Sheng should like it here. Jiang Wuyo, the master of Huaying Palace. Cheng Geng Sheng, the legitimate son of Zheng Genjia. Fan Qingqing obviously didn't expect that under such circumstances, Jiang Wang would still be tempted by Granny Bijou, the elder of the Sea Fishing Tower, in person. Her eyes suddenly lit up, and her smile became more sincere. When the time comes, I'll definitely treat you well. I won't let little brother Jiang down. Let's part ways here. We'll meet again. Jiang Wang smiled, turned around, and flew away. There was no need to say everything. It was enough. Fan Qingqing didn't invite him back to the Five Immortals sect station with good intentions. However, it didn't stop him from benefiting from the Zhengsheng Palace. He also found new clues from Granny Bijou. He was willing to help the Five Immortals sect get rid of Granny Bijou only because they had a common enemy. However, the Five Immortals sect still had to pay a hefty price to get the exchange. The bait had been cast. The rest depended on what the Five Immortals sect could pay. Life wasn't always full of ups and downs. Most of the time, it was boring. Jiang Wang's ultimate goal was the Isle of Huai. However, on the way, he tried to feel the atmosphere of the offshore islands. He didn't know if it was because his identity was exposed on the Isle of Huai, but in the following part of the journey, there were obviously fewer troubles. Correspondingly, there were fewer opportunities to learn more about the offshore islands. However, Jiang Wang didn't intend to do that. Every day, he cultivated, hurried, and did things that were ostensibly to investigate, but actually to collect information. He went from island to island. Finally, on the 11th of March, he arrived at Little Crescent Island. Chapter 834. Small Crescent Island was the most prosperous island in the middle of the coastal islands. Not only was its name very close to Crescent Island, but its status was also very close. Its significance overseas was equivalent to Chi's Little Lindsay. Of course, for Jiang Wang, the most important thing was that he had a few old friends here. Yin Fu, who went out to sea first, had already informed Su Xiangxian and the others that Jiang Wang was going to handle a case. And the news that Golden Needle Sect's Wu Yu had been executed. It was not a secret to Li Longchuan. They had even waited for a few days. In Su Xiangxian's words, Jiang Qingyang, I missed you so much. There was a poem as proof. Missed you so much, yet you still haven't come. Su Xiangxian's face was full of pride. How is it? How is this sentence? Do you guys understand the double meaning of my words? The banquet was held at Spring Breeze Restaurant. This restaurant was known as the Spring Breeze on the Sea is in this restaurant. It was naturally a top-notch place for sensual pleasures. With Su Xiangxian around, there was usually no need to consider simple places. Turning the hope of Jiang Wang into the hope of hope is truly wonderful. Brother Su, your poetic skills have improved greatly. Congratulations. Jiang Wang sincerely said perfunctorily, then asked Li Longchuan, "Why don't I see Brother Yin? I don't know which island he want to play on." Li Longchuan understood Jiang Wang's meaning very well and explained, before he left, he already told the owner of this place that this banquet will be on his account. If Su Xiangqian was the one treating, he might not be able to afford this meal. Just from the four beauties sitting behind the screen and hugging the pipa, one could roughly imagine the price of this meal. Su Xiangqian might look like the owner of this place, but that was only because he was used to being shameless. This kind of guy who had wine in the morning had been in the coastal islands for so long. Even if he had money, he had already spent it all. Yin Fu was usually the one who spent money, but now he did not see Yin Fu. So Jiang Wang asked this question. Su Xiangqian clicked his tongue in satisfaction and recovered from his poetic thoughts. He interrupted, "You don't have a definite answer, so he naturally can't wait for you here. He's gone crazy from playing. Ever since he went out to sea, he's been running around and playing everywhere." Yin Fu had a calm and introverted personality. He did everything slowly and methodically, neither too fast nor too slow. If it weren't for the fact that he had been suppressing himself too much in Linzi, he definitely wouldn't have been so unrestrained. He was really forced by Jiang Wuyo to stay at home. He was too ruthless. "Sai, this is really..." Jiang Wang couldn't help laughing and asked Li Longchuan, "What about you guys? What the hell is going on? I've heard some rumors, but they aren't true." Li Longchuan glanced at Su Xiangqian and curled his lips. "He sent me an urgent message saying that his inner palace has been broken and his divine art seed is about to disperse. That's why I rushed here through the night. Only when we arrived did we find out that he had only lost one of his front teeth." Li Longchuan was clearly helpless. However, Su Xiangqian jumped up and said, "Front teeth are very important, okay? That's how you look. Do you know what that looks like?" His spittle flew everywhere as he took a moment to glare fiercely at Jiang Wang. "What are you looking at? It's mending." He blocked Jiang Wang's embarrassed gaze as he looked for his missing front teeth. Jiang Wang really didn't want to provoke him right now. Right now, he was like an enraged lion, furious because he had failed in his estrus. He could enter a duel at any time. "Front teeth are very important," Su Xiangqian repeated. He glanced at Li Longchuan's neat, white teeth. He sat down again and put his arm around Jiang Wang's shoulder. "Forget it. You can't understand the distress of handsome men like us." Jiang Wang looked at the extraordinarily handsome Li Longchuan and then at Su Xiangqian, whose forehead was strangely high. It was hard to imagine how thick-skinned this person had to be to think that he was more handsome than Li Longchuan. Could it be that it wasn't his forehead that was higher, but his face? But then he thought about it again. He was naturally in the same camp as Su Xiangqian. So what did his appearance count for? He couldn't help but gloat. "Fine, front teeth are very important." Li Longchuan had no choice but to compromise. "But it just so happens that Brother Jiang is here too. Tell me, we've already fought and form a grudge. It's not a good idea to always be jealous of a woman. Do you still want to stay here? The offshore islands are their territory after all." "What do you mean by jealous of a woman?" Su Xiangqian glared at him. "Li Longchuan, your words make me very unhappy." His face was full of anger. "Ms. Zhao and I are in love with each other. That little thief Yang Lu is shameless and insists on pestering us. Don't you know that? You said that a strong dragon can't suppress a snake in its old haunts. I listened to you and left the Isle of Hawaii first. I rested on Crescent Island. Miss Zhao couldn't stand his harassment, and she was worried about me. So, she also ran to Crescent Island. Yang Lu is so shameless that he actually chased after us. Can you blame me for this? Is it because I'm jealous of a woman?" Li Longchuan couldn't listen anymore. He was afraid that Jiang Wang would be misled. So he added, "Ms. Zhao Wuyin came to Crescent Island first, and we followed after her. It's all the same." Su Xiangqian waved his hand. "Our hearts are connected, so we understand each other. We came here at the same time." The more he spoke, the more excited he became. She's obviously in love with me. Her junior apprentice sister is also very close to me. That's right. Her junior apprentice sister is called Ji Shu. Su Xianqian turned to look at Jiang Wang and patted him affectionately. I'll introduce her to you when the time comes. Li Longchuan was already supporting his forehead with his hand. He didn't want to speak anymore. Jiang Wang was baffled. He didn't know why he was suddenly introduced. What Ji Shu? He could see that Su Xianqian was just pestering endlessly. He refused to leave no matter what and insisted on dragging Li Longchuan to accompany him. There was no need to talk about Li Longchuan's friendship with him. Since he had boarded the pirate ship, it was difficult for him to get off. After all, he couldn't really ignore him and allow him to be bullied overseas. The few of them were making a racket here. Only the four beauties playing the pipa were very cultured. Su Xianqian was composing crooked poems and spouting nonsense, but they didn't seem to hear him. They didn't play a single note wrong. I say, Jiang Wang asked curiously. That Miss Zhao Wuyin, who exactly is she to be able to make brother Su so infatuated? Even though Li Longchuan didn't agree with Su Xianqian's jealousy, he still couldn't help but say, that's the eldest senior apprentice sister of Longmen Academy. There's nothing to say about her character. She's naturally first class. Oh, Jiang Wang was even more curious. What's her cultivation level? What does she look like? He was indeed very curious. Su Xianqian was a scholar who was used to collecting literature in various places. He was a regular in the entertainment scene. It was hard to imagine what kind of person could make him so infatuated. He didn't hesitate to tear into people like a ruffian. Brother Jiang. Su Xianqian looked at him and shook his head. He picked up a cup of wine. In our lives, we will meet many people and see many sights. There are thousands of flowers and tens of thousands of people, but there's only one person. I can't say whether she's the most beautiful, nor can I say whether she's unparalleled in the world. But once you see her, you can't see anyone else. Once you think about her, you can't tolerate other thoughts. Only then will you know that your heart is so small. It's so small that it can only hold one person. He drank the wine in his cup in one gulp and was momentarily dazed. This person is like a dream. Every night comes as expected. Chapter 835. She was as beautiful as a dream. She would come to his dream every night. There is no need to elaborate on that kind of yearning, tossing and turning, sweetness and sadness. I'm like a dream, every night, as usual. Jiang Wang couldn't understand this feeling. He rarely slept, so he rarely dreamed. What he dreamed of was often the miserable state of Maplewood City. Therefore, when he heard Su Xianqian's words, he wasn't moved. Instead, he wanted to laugh. Did you say the same thing when you pursued Longchuan's sister? Everyone has a love for beauty. I like Sister Feng Yao because of my appreciation of beautiful things. Su Xianqian wasn't embarrassed at all and continued to be affectionate. At first, I thought I was the same as senior sister. I, Su Xianqian, am greedy and lustful. I love beautiful scenery. There's nothing to pretend about that. If I like something, I'll get close. If I don't, I'll turn around. But during this period of time, I realized that my feelings for senior sister are different. This feeling is love. Love for beauty and love for love were similar but different. Li Longchuan muttered, "Is it because Miss Zhao hasn't beaten you yet?" Jiang Wang, who had finally wavered, almost spat out a mouthful of wine. After Su Xianqian was beaten 18 times, he finally gave up his pursuit of Li Fengyao. This matter had long become a joke among the aristocratic sons of Linzi. If Jiang Wang was beaten up for spreading rumors before he participated in the Seven-Star Secret Realm, he had been beaten up a total of 19 times. No matter how Jiang Wang and Li Longchuan mocked him, Su Xianqian wasn't angry at all. He had the magnanimity to say, "What harm do you have to me?" Instead, he chuckled and grabbed Jiang Wang's arm. He suddenly stood up. "Aren't you curious about senior sister Zhao? Let's go. I'll take you to see her." "This is too sudden." Jiang Wang was caught off guard. "Why now?" Su Xianqian had already pushed his chair away and strode forward. He only said, "I miss her, so I'm going to see her." His answer was simple, direct, and matter-of-fact. He reeked of alcohol, as if he was drunk, as if he was drunk. He pulled Jiang Wang and even ran. It could be seen that he was really anxious and desperate. Su Xiangqian, who was in a hurry, pulled her along as he ran through Chunfeng restaurant. He had stirred up a great commotion and disturbed a great deal of peace. Sorry. Jiang Wang repeatedly apologized. However, he suddenly felt that Su Gaogao seemed to be serious this time. Li Longchuan followed behind to clean up the mess, but he only needed to say, "Put it on Yin Fu's tab." No one was afraid that young Master Yin Fu would not be able to afford the compensation. Therefore, even though Chunfeng restaurant was so big, there was not a single sound of reprimand. He allowed the drunkard to drag his friend out. Su Xiangqian pulled Jiang Wang and ran out of Chunfeng restaurant. They ran into the bustling crowd on the street. At this moment, he did not look like a disciple of a famous sect, nor did he look like a young and promising transcendent cultivator. He was no different from many young men in this world who had fallen in love. He roughly looked left and right, determined the direction, and recklessly rushed to the right. "Where are we going?" Jiang Wang couldn't break free, so he asked as he ran. "Jihu Tea House." Su Xiangqian hurriedly replied, "Senior Marshal Sister Zhao loves to drink tea. She must be there right now." Time passed like water. Suddenly, between fingers. "Good name." Jiang Wang praised in his heart and said, "Then let go of me. I'll just follow you. It's not right to pull and pull like this." He. Su Xiangqian smiled slyly. "I can't let you run away." Before Jiang Wang could understand what he meant, the two of them had already stopped in front of Tea House. Green bamboo was the wall, and green leaves were the roof tiles. A white stone path was decorated with jade beads. There was a red peach in front of the house, blooming in the spring breeze. Jiang Wang and Su Xiangqian were like two boorish men who did not understand the situation, barging into a tranquil paradise. It was quite a killjoy. Su Xiangqian even shouted, "Senior Marshal Sister Zhao, I'm coming." The spring water in Chunfeng restaurant was ruffled by the wind, and the tranquility in the room was broken. Many dissatisfied gazes immediately came from the tea house. Li Longchuan, who had followed behind, facepalmed. He was speechless. Su Xiangqian did not care much. He casually lifted the curtain and entered. He even pulled Jiang Wang abruptly. "Come in. What are you standing there for? Brother Su, you're a scholar. You're an outstanding disciple of Green Cliff Academy. Where's the etiquette?" Jiang Wang looked at Su Xiangqian's arrogant drunkard appearance and did not ask this question. He ignored the servant in charge of welcoming the guests and the dissatisfied gazes. Su Xiangqian had a clear goal. He pulled Jiang Wang left and right, and soon found the private room where Zhao Wuyan drank tea. This private room was separated by a vertical screen. There was nothing more than a short table and two praying mats inside. Two women sat facing each other. The woman on the left looked innocent and cute. She had two small dimples and was looking at Su Xiangqian angrily. The woman on the right looked ordinary, but sitting there, she floated in the air and had an unforgettable temperament. In terms of appearance, she could not be compared to many beauties. However, Jiang Wang was certain that she was the Zhao Wuyan of Dragon Gate Academy, which Su Xiangqian yearned for day and night. Some women were able to blossom with their unique brilliance at any time and any place. That scenery would not be obscured by anything. Looking at the short table again, it was simple. There was only a pot and 2 cups. The pot was ordinary, but the tea was not ordinary. The tea's fragrance wafted from the tip of the nose. There was a vague feeling of the vast sea, which made one feel refreshed. Why is junior brother Su here again? Zhao Wuyan was clearly having a headache. It seemed that she had been pestered by Su Xiangqian a lot. Su Xiangqian grinned. "I missed you." Zhao Wuyan was helpless. "Junior brother, you're drunk." Su Xiangqian giggled. True words come out when drunk. At this moment, an angry roar suddenly exploded. "I think you're just farting after drinking." From a private room in the far corner, a young master with makeup on his face angrily strode over. Looking at his posture, Jiang Wang did not even need to ask. He could guess that this person was the disciple of Fishing Ocean Tower, Yang Lu, who was jealous of Su Xiangqian. Ordinary people would not dare to compete with a disciple of Green Cliff Academy like this. A group of people followed behind him. They were probably the other disciples of Fishing Ocean Tower. Su Xiangqian was undoubtedly at the inner palace of the remarkable ability realm. Yang Lu could be said to be an elite among the disciples of Fishing Ocean Tower. He was also one of the main forces pursuing Zhao Wuyin, but he was more graceful and patient than Su Xiangqian. He had been sitting in a private room in the distance, afraid of offending the beauty. Think about it. The beauty you were afraid of offending was offended by a shameless brute. How could you not be angry? Yang Liu's anger was reasonable. However, how could Su Xiangqian lose in a quarrel? Hearing this, he laughed in disdain. Then you're really enjoying it. You're still coming over to eat? I think you haven't been beaten enough. Have your front teeth grown back? Yang Lu had clearly figured out Su Xiangqian's quarrel. He did not want to tangle with him and only hit where it hurt. As expected, Su Xiangqian was furious. You surnamed Yang, come, let's fight again. Yang Lu was not to be outdone. I'm not afraid of you. Clang! There was a soft sound. However, Zhao Wuyin could not stand it anymore and flicked the teacup. Knocking on the teacup was like the sound of a bell, causing the anger in one's heart to dissipate. If you want to quarrel, please do it outside. Don't affect the other guests in the tea house. Zhao Wuyin said calmly, but he was clearly angry. You can't do whatever you want and ignore other people's feelings just because you're from a good family and have a high cultivation, okay? Chapter 836. As soon as Zhao Wuyin said this, Su Xiangqian and Yang Lu immediately gave up. If they continued to cause trouble, both of them would be eliminated. Jiang Wang, who was standing at the side, felt embarrassed for the two. Both of them were from famous sects, and their cultivation levels were not low. They could be considered geniuses, but they were still as childish as 3-year-old children. However, when it came to embarrassing things, as long as one was not embarrassed, others would be embarrassed. Su Gao, on the other hand, didn't know what awkwardness was. He didn't let go of his grip on Jiang Wang's arm. Now that he pulled Jiang Wang in front of him, he didn't explain anything to Wu Yin. Instead, he said to the lady in front of Wu Yin, "Jishu, look who I brought here." He patted Jiang Wang as if he was presenting a treasure. The other one of the twin prides of Rushing Horse Mountain, Daqi's Qingyang townsman, a 5th-rank blue medal, Jiang Wang. Oh no, he's a 4th-rank blue medal now. He laughed and leaned forward. Haven't you always wanted to see him? Jishu was originally annoyed with him for not changing. She pouted the whole time in the noisy tea house. However, when she heard him say Jiang Wang's name, her cheeks suddenly turned red and she lowered her head. She always felt that Su Xiangqian was unreliable and was just bragging. She did not expect him to really bring Jiang Wang here. What should she do? She thought. Su Xiangqian said that he wanted to matchmake them Dao companions. How could she accept this? Jiang Wang was suddenly speechless when he was pushed out like an exhibit. He finally understood why Su Xiangqian was afraid that he would run away. He also finally knew why Su Xiangqian missed him so much. He thought of Nianji as soon as they met. It was so disgusting. He even wrote poems. When they were in Linzi, he did not come to see him every day. However, when they were overseas, he suddenly became too affectionate. So he was waiting for him here. He suddenly wanted to ask Yang Lu if he could beat Su Gao to death now. He could even beat him half to death. He would definitely stand by and watch. Li Long Chuan, who silently followed them in, had a sympathetic expression. He only said in his heart, "Brother Jiang, calm down." Alas, Su Xiangqian pushed Jiang Wang to the seat next to Jishu. There was only one praying mat, but Jiang Wang was forced to sit next to her. "Jishu, I brought him to you. Your senior martial brother Su is a man of his word, so you have to keep your word as well." With a bright smile on his face, he squeezed next to Zhao Wuyin. But a person squeezed in front of him, firmly blocking his position. Yang Lu used her back to support Su Xiangqian. She had no face to face Zhao. He was indeed very gracious. At such a moment, he was still trying his best to move back, so as not to let Zhao Wuyin feel offended. Senior Sister Zhao. He squeezed out his most gentle smile. Didn't you encounter some bottlenecks in your cultivation recently? Therefore, he came overseas to relax. I've been worried about this for a long time. This time, I specially invited Master Nanchua for you. He couldn't help but turn around and glare at Su Xiangqian. However, Su Xiangqian couldn't squeeze in. He reached out and pinched the soft flesh on his waist. What are you howling for? Su Xiangqian complained. It's a fair competition, so you have to be polite. Why are you so close to me? What's going on? Stand out with me and stay away from Senior Sister Zhao. Yang Lu ignored him and turned back to Zhao Wuyan. She smiled and said, Master Nanchua is the best at pointing people out and dispelling their doubts. Even my senior martial brother was taught by him. Oh, Zhao Wuyan was a little moved. Your senior martial brother admitted himself? Yang Lu smiled. How can it be fake? The senior martial brother that Yang Lu mentioned was the senior martial brother of Fishing Sea Tower, Chun Jitao, who already had the cultivation of immortal ascension. He was a famous powerhouse on the sea. He and Chun Jitao were from the same sect, so his testimony was naturally convincing. A master who could teach Chun Jitao. How strong was he? Was he a perfected one? Or a perfected one? No wonder Yang Lu was so confident. It turned out that she had invited such an expert. Jiang Wang was surprised, but he saw Su Xiangqian's face darken. He stood up and avoided the awkward interaction with Miss Ji Shu. He asked Li Longchuan with his eyes. Li Longchuan replied, I've heard of this person. He's quite famous in the offshore islands. He specially commented on the battle between Yang Lu and Su Xiangqian, saying that Su Gao Gao was worthless. He said that this move was wrong, and that move was also wrong. He told him to go back to Green Cliff Academy and study for a few more years. This comment was spread widely by Yang Lu. There were people who said all kinds of things. There were even people who said shame of Green Cliff. Only then did Jiang Wang understand why Su Xiangqian, who had such a carefree personality, was so unhappy. From a long time ago, Jiang Wang knew that Su Xiangqian was actually very proud. In the lower city of Yu Country, he stood up for a weak girl. In Linzi, Qi, he came out to collect Su Fang's corpse. Although this guy looked like he was used to being shameless, he actually had his own pride and perseverance. When he was still participating in the Tianfu secret territory, he didn't even care about Wang Yiwu. It could be said that he was quite arrogant. The evaluation of shame of Green Cliff was almost unbearable for someone like him who liked to boast. If it wasn't for the fact that the master's background was too big, he might have already beaten him up. But this time, the master was invited by Yang Lu to help Zhao Wuyin solve her problems. He also knew that Zhao Wuyin was in a cultivation predicament. She came overseas to find an opportunity, so he couldn't disturb her. He couldn't ruin this matter. He couldn't let himself ruin Zhao Wuyin's opportunity, because he really fell in love with Zhao Wuyin. In a strange silence, outside, there were whispers gradually. Master Nanji! Master Nanji is here. Master Nanji is here. He's an otherworldly expert. It's rare to see him. We're lucky to be able to see him today. Yang Lu smiled lightly and said, I'll go and welcome the great master. Senior Sister Zhao, please wait here for a moment. How can I do that? Zhao Wuyin stood up and said, I should also go welcome him. That's good. Yang Lu smiled and made way. She completely ignored Su Xiangqian, who was standing next to her with the attitude of a winner. Jishu also stood up with her head down. She walked past Jiang Wang, pulled Zhao Wuyin's sleeve, and followed her out. When he turned the corner, he took the opportunity to turn around and sneaked a peek at Jiang Wang at lightning speed. Then, he hurriedly turned his head back. Like a little quail, she followed behind Zhao Wuyin step by step. He's a clean and handsome young man, she thought. This girl's thoughts were quiet and no one noticed. In the quiet tea room, there was no quiet heart at this moment. Everyone had their own feelings. Zhao Wuyin thought about cultivation, Yang Lu thought about performance, and Su Xiangqian remembered the humiliation. What to do? Li Longchuan looked at Su Xiangqian and asked Jiang Wang with his eyes. Jiang Wang directly grabbed Su Xiangqian and smiled. Let's go and see. Su Xiangqian sneered. Let's see, why not? I like to see how powerful this master is. With the foundation of Green Cliff Academy, even in front of a perfected person, he didn't need to be too humble. His master, the great scholar Amoya, was a perfected person. This was the confidence of a prestigious family. Chapter 837. Jiang Wang and the other two hadn't even squeezed into the front hall when the clamor of voices could be heard. Master, I'm stuck outside the heaven and earth gate. How can I get rid of it? A deep voice replied, Wait a moment. Master, please help me. How can I clear the fog of obscurity? Every time I explore, I feel powerless. I'm afraid I'll get lost. The voice replied, Wait a moment. Master, when can I open my meridians? Can you take a look at my body's condition and see if it has recovered? The voice replied again, Let's take a look. The response was simple, but every answer hit the nail on the head. It was the absolute truth, enlightening even the deaf. As expected of Master Nanyo, Jiang Wang could already hear the crowd's praises. After 3 questions and 3 answers, the voice shouted again, Today's 3 questions are over. Everyone can rest now. Then came the voice of Yang Lu, the true disciple of Fishing Ocean Tower. Every time Master appears, he only answers 3 questions except for special invitations. The rules of an expert cannot be broken easily. Everyone, please don't block the way and disturb us. Jiang Wang turned the corner and saw an old man wearing a round cat mask. His face was pale, and his sleeves fluttered as he walked. He looked like an immortal as he walked and surrounded by a group of people. This round brown cat mask was the symbol of Master Nanyo. This master only played in the human world to help others. He didn't like fame, so he only showed people his cat mask. Therefore, he had another nickname, which was Cat Immortal. Yang Lu walked beside him and said something respectfully to Master Nanyo. Even more people were reluctant, but had to give up their seats. On small Crescent Island, not many people dared to offend a true disciple of Fishing Ocean Tower, and even fewer people dared to offend Master Nanyo. It was very rare to see the master. They didn't get the first 3 questions, but they had nothing to complain about. What do you think of this person's cultivation? Li Longchuan asked telepathically. Jiang Wang shook his head. It's fleeting, I can't see it clearly. Yes. Li Longchuan's voice was very solemn. This person is unfathomable. Li Longchuan came from one of the top families in Qi City and had very high standards. He had seen countless so-called experts, but he was still unable to judge the strength of Master Nancy. From this, one could see how terrifying this person was. The main hall of Jiu Tea House was originally an enormous tea house, separated by screens for guests to sit and drink tea. By this time, the low tables and screens had all been cleared away. In the middle of the room, there was a purple cloud dragon fishing table and 4 cloud silk sky green praying mats. Clearly, Willow had not prepared a spot for anyone else. However, this didn't stop the many customers from squeezing into the seats against the wall and sitting on the floor. It was hard to say that the master's explanation was that they would benefit greatly just by listening to him. It was hard to say that the great master refused to pass on his responsibility and sat at the head of the table. Zhao Wuyan, who was seeking Dao, naturally sat across from him. Jishu and Yang Lu sat on the left and right. Then he looked at the spectators who had crowded around the wall several times. The quiet tea room had become a place for preaching. However, other than Su Xiangqian, who was burning with jealousy, no one would have any objections. Not only were the customers here, many of them had heard the news of Master Nancy's appearance and flocked over. The owner of Jiu Tea House had no choice but to close the doors and announce the closure of the business to prevent the tea house from collapsing. Master Nancy's reputation could be seen from this. It was not an exaggeration to say that he was sought after by tens of thousands of people. Cough. Yang Lu sat there in high spirits. She reached out to take the teapot and said respectfully, Master Nancy, I'm very grateful that you took the time to come today. Zhao Wuyin took the teapot first. Let me. Since she was the one seeking Tao, this should be her job. Hot the cup, warm the pot, enter the palace, wash the tea, order the tea. Her movements were graceful and unhurried. It was simply a pleasing scene to the eye. The smile in Yang Lu's eyes deepened, but he didn't fight with her. He only said to Master Nancy, "If it's about my own matters, I am not in a hurry. However, it's about my senior apprentice sister that makes me worried." He stopped and said, "I forgot to introduce you. My senior apprentice sister is a student of Longman Academy. She is a true god's favored one." Zhao Wuyin smiled at the right time. "I am Zhao Wuyin." The round cat mask covered Master Nancy's expression, but it did not cover his deep and distant eyes. He sat calmly and nodded gently, as if he did not care about the reputation of Longman Academy. He only said, "Although you are from a famous school, you cannot slack off." Someone who could guide Chen Jitao naturally had the right to say such words. Zhao Wuyin stopped and lowered her head. "I dare not. I work hard every day, regardless of the weather." Master Nancy nodded gently, as if he approved of her attitude. After a moment of silence, he asked, "What is bothering you?" Zhao Wuyin offered the teacup with both hands. When Master Nancy reached out to take it, she folded her hands in front of her and said politely, "2 years ago, I was already at the top of the outer tower. I also have prospects for my future path. However, it is still difficult to choose the path of God. In these 2 years, not only did I not think clearly, I became more confused. I really don't know where the path is." Jiang Wang and Li Longchuan looked at each other and saw the amazement in each other's eyes. Su Xianqian was not good at other things, but his taste in women was first class. Zhao Wuyin was already at the top of the outer tower 2 years ago. Her talent was needless to say, and according to her words, she was stuck before God, not because she could not find her own path, but because she was too talented. There were too many paths, so she could not choose. This kind of struggle might be pretentious if it happened to others. However, Jiang Wang and Li Longchuan were both talented people. Of course, they could understand this demanding of herself. If it was not the firm and best path, she would rather not take it. If she did not have this demanding nature, how could she achieve Tianjiao? It's hard to say, hard to say. The master side. It's hard to say was the master's catchphrase. It was also the reason why he was called Master Nancy. The path of cultivation was indeed hard to say. If one did not have great knowledge, it would be hard to say clearly. There were many strong people in the coastal waters, and most of them were burdened by various things. There were very few people like Master Nancy who had the time to travel around and teach people. Although it's hard to say, "Please say it, Master," Yang Lu said warmly from the side and gently pushed a square box over. The box was inlaid with jade and pearls, and it was carved by a famous artist. There was no need to open it. Just by looking at the box, one could tell that this gift was not cheap. Master Nancy did not even look at it. He only said to Zhao Wuyin, "Take this or take that, or be inclusive, or even give up on all and seek another path. These are not necessarily the wrong choices. The great Tao is like the blue sky, boundless and without end. I only have one word of advice. Where the heart desires, that is what people will do." Zhao Wuyin was thoughtful, but she was also a little confused. Master Nancy asked again, "Do you seem to understand something, but also like you don't understand anything?" Zhao Wuyin lowered her head in shame. "I am stupid. This shows that your martial arts are not good enough, and your Tao heart is not firm enough. You are unable to wash away the dust and see your original heart. You need to understand more." Master Nancy put the square box on the table into his sleeve and sighed. "It's useless to say more." Chapter 838. The master's words made Zhao Wuyin fall into deep thought. "Good." Yang Lu clapped his hands and sighed. As the saying goes, listening to the master's words is better than studying for 10 years. Master's words are so enlightening. Those who were lucky enough to listen to the master could not help but discuss and praise him. Master is indeed a master. Every word is priceless. The Longman Academy is known to be the best at teaching geniuses, but I think they can't even compare to the master's words. That's right, the master is hidden among the people. Of course, there are also people who asked, if the master is so powerful, why didn't he establish his own sect? Immediately, someone refuted. How can you guess the master's thoughts? Also, maybe the master is the head of one of the sects. He just doesn't want to be disturbed by worldly matters and is purely trying to benefit his fellow cultivators. Only the great master himself did not say a word. Despite the clamor, he sat upright and did not speak. His eyes were still calm and deep, like the vast and boundless heaven and earth, silently containing the ups and downs of the world. What a way to remain indifferent. He really had the aura of an immortal. Only the naive Jishu tilted her head, her face full of confusion. Probably because her cultivation was too low, she could not understand the master's true intentions. Yang Liu's mouth twitched, and suddenly his gaze turned, pretending to be surprised. Hey, isn't this brother Su Xiangqian from the Green Cliff Academy? Why haven't you left? Among the crowd sitting on the floor, Jiang Wang and the other two standing at the door were very conspicuous, like three-door gods standing there. Of course, Su Xiangqian was actually standing behind Jiang Wang and Li Longchuan, but he was still accidentally discovered by Yang Lu, who had excellent eyesight. This was a very awkward situation, but Su Xiangqian was used to being shameless and instead squeezed forward, separating Jiang Wang and Li Longchuan, and stepped into the room without hesitation. You're so concerned about your grandpa, Su. Why? Are you looking for trouble? Yang Lu did not confront him directly, and only chuckled, turning his head to the master beside him. Do you remember this, Su Xiangqian? Master Nanyu raised his eyelids slightly and said casually, Oh, the one who fought with you last time? Yang Lu clapped his hands. Of course. Master, you still remember him. Grandmaster Nanyu shook his head and looked at Su Xiangqian. He then said earnestly, It's not that this old man wants to nag at you, Gaobrat. Your starting Dao technique is a little weak. Jiang Wang couldn't help but frown. He had already heard from Li Longchuan that this master had previously criticized Su Xiangqian, causing Su Gao Gao to be unable to raise his head in the offshore islands. In the past, it was fine if he casually commented, but today, Su Xiangqian was standing here and arguing with Yang Lu about something completely unrelated. Firstly, he didn't ask for any advice from him, and secondly, he didn't offend him. Yet, the moment he came up, he started to criticize him and said that he was inferior. He looked like he was heartbroken. Who would feel good about this? Let's not talk about Su Xiangqian's strength and talent. Even if Su Xiangqian was really unworthy and difficult to carve out, Su Xiangqian had his own teachers. What did it have to do with Master Nancy? Since when was it your turn to give pointers to an unknown master from overseas? Did he really think that the great scholar Mo, you had a good temper and would not come out to sea to scold him? Jiang Wang just frowned. On the other side, Su Xiangqian could no longer hold himself back. He directly strode forward. What does it have to do with you? Once these words came out, everyone was shocked. Su Xiangqian. Yang Lu slammed the table and stood up, pointing at him. How dare you be so rude to the master? Scram. Su Xiangqian spat back at him, still glaring at Master Nancy. I've tolerated you for a long time. Wearing a fat cat mask to hide your head and tail, you really think you're an immortal. Who do you think you are to give pointers to your grandpa, Su? You pointed at him the day before yesterday, and now you're pointing at him? Are you done yet? His spittle flew everywhere, unable to restrain his anger. I'm from Green Cliff Academy, and I inherited the legacy of the great scholar Emoya. I'm a 20-year-old with a divine ability, Inner Palace. Within 15 years, I can expect to descend. What about you? Tell me, who do you think you are? Master Nancy's voice deepened. Don't say you can only expect to descend. Even a true divine descent cultivator, Chun Ji Tao, wouldn't dare to be so rude to me. What does Chun Ji Tao have to do with me? Su Xiangqian had completely shed all pretense of cordiality. He no longer cared about his demeanor as a disciple of a famous sect. So what if I'm rude to you? So what? Being criticized and belittled in front of the woman he loved. This humiliation made him furious. He said fiercely, "Today I want to see what you're relying on, and whether you dare to kill me and face the wrath of Green Cliff Academy." Su Xiangqian, that's enough. Master Nancy didn't argue with you, and you still want to take advantage of him? Yang Lu moved forward to stop him. On the surface, he was trying to mediate, but in reality, he was fanning the flames. Why don't you try moving? Li Longchuan stretched out his hand, and the Qiushan Bao immediately appeared in his hand. He pointed at Yang Lu and locked onto his aura. As long as Yang Lu moved, the arrow would be released. The murderous intent from Yang Liu's weapon, the Qiushan Bao, instantly pierced through the distance and pressed forward. The group of Fishing Ocean Tower disciples that Yang Lu had brought with him were calm and fearless. They all stood up. Let's try. Do you think we're afraid of you? Do you think you Chi people have the right to be arrogant in an archipelago near the sea? Swords were drawn and bows were drawn. Jiang Wang didn't say anything, but his hand was already on his sword. If they really fought, he would undoubtedly stand on Li Longchuan's side. On the other hand, Master Nancy, who was scolded to his face, truly had the demeanor of a master. He didn't get angry, nor did he attack. He only sighed in disappointment. You're so impatient at such a young age. I didn't expect Green Cliff Academy's learning style to be so corrupt. His deep eyes looked deeply at Su Xiangqian through the cat mask. If you don't want to listen, I won't say it. But young man, you must know that my words are a bit direct, but I don't mean any harm. You should understand that hypocrisy and snakes are only harming you. Su Xiangqian's anger was immediately stifled. He was stunned for a moment before saying, hypocrisy and civility. The scene was awkward for a moment. Master Nancy was silent for a moment before replying, yes. He looked around and sighed. Words, small words, cultivation is the great Tao. Look, even with my cultivation, there are times when I misremember words. How can there not be any twists and turns in your cultivation? Only then did everyone react. Master Nancy was using this small matter to teach them the great principles of cultivation. For a moment, they deeply felt the master's painstaking efforts. Master Nancy was indifferent. He only turned his head and said to Zhao Wuyin, "Did you remember my teachings just now?" Zhao Wuyin frowned slightly. "Master, I still don't quite understand." "It's hard to say. The master said twice and sighed. The so-called mysteries of heaven stop at a certain point. It can only be understood, but not explained. Think about it yourself." As he spoke, he propped himself up on the table. "This matter is over. I'll go on a journey. There are still important matters waiting for me in the bewildering world." Speaking of the bewildering world, it was a major matter involving the sea race. No one dared to neglect it. Yang Lu immediately bowed and said, "Master, take care." Jiang Wang also relaxed the hilt of his sword and prepared to leave the door. After all, his friend's personal honor and the important matters of the sea border were more important. But at this moment, Li Longchuan's voice sounded in his ear. "There's something wrong with this person." Cheng Gung Sheng waited for Jiang Wang to return before stepping out of Linzi City with the lawful embodiment of heaven and earth. Li Longchuan and Su Xiangqian were both winners of the Heavenly Palace Secret Realm, but they had already obtained divine abilities. And Jiang Wang knew that Li Longchuan's divine ability was called Candlelight. As the saying went, everything seen is seen in detail. It was a first-rate divine ability. Li Longchuan was targeting Yang Lu, the direct disciple of Fishing Sea Tower, but he saw something from Master Nancy. Wait, Su Xiangqian had obviously been informed by Li Longchuan. He naturally had no reservations about Li Longchuan. Immediately, new and old grudges surged. He directly blocked the path, opened his hand, and grabbed. "You can leave, but take off your mask first. Let me see who you are." Chapter 839. How dare you? Master Nanyu flew into a rage and flipped his sleeves. Instantly, his aura surged like a tide, turning heaven and earth upside down. His terrifying aura instantly descended upon the tea room, causing everyone to be unable to breathe. It was as if heaven and earth were about to be destroyed, as if doomsday had arrived. It was as if all tangible and intangible existences could no longer exist. Kid Gal, it's not too late to surrender now. I don't want to bully the weak and accidentally kill you. I'll be ashamed to see my old friend. His voice was like rolling thunder, shocking everyone. So powerful. Everyone had such a thought in their hearts. And from the meaning of his words, he was actually old acquaintances with the great scholar of Green Cliff Academy, Emoya. No wonder he was so resentful of Su Xiangxian for failing to live up to his expectations. Everything made sense now. His criticism of Su Xiangxian was the elder's love for the younger generation. The depth of his reproach was the depth of his love. Unfortunately, Su Xiangxian did not know what was good for him. Not only did Su Xiangxian not know what was good for him before, but he also refused to surrender now. He was not the only one who refused to surrender. In Master Nanyu's magnificent, thunderous voice, but there was a sharp sound. That was the sound of a sharp arrow piercing through space. It was like the sound of a huge bubble being punctured. When the chi moved, the arrow would move spontaneously. And when the chi moved, a flaw would appear. The arrow that seemed to be wrapped in a white stream of light and a long flame tail instantly arrived in front of Master Nanyu. The airflow was violent, and the flame wind was swaying. This was an arrow of chi. This arrow was so powerful, but almost no one thought that it could do anything to Master Nanyu, because the aura displayed by the two sides was not on the same level at all. What is? That was a thin and clear sound of silk tearing. Master Nanyu stood in place, still opening his big hand, but half of his sleeve had been torn. The arrow of chi with a white flame tail nailed a round object to the wall, embedding it several inches in. Jiang Wang looked carefully and saw that it was a very round pearl. The clouds inside were changing, sometimes crowded with pedestrians, sometimes flowing mountains and rivers, sometimes collapsing mountains and tsunamis, and sometimes the sky collapsed and the earth caved in. He recognized that it was the Mirage Pearl, but it was bigger and rounder than Zhu Biqiang's pearl, and there were more changes and more complicated in the pearl. On the other hand, Grandmaster Nanyu, whose aura seemed to be able to destroy the heavens and the earth a moment ago, instantly weakened his aura. His mere cultivation base of the soaring dragon realm was no longer concealed and was exposed in front of everyone. The dream had been shattered. The Mirage King's Pearl. Yang Liu's face was so dark that even her makeup could not hide it. The Sea Serpent Pearl had its own illusory ability and was extremely precious. The Sea Serpent King Pearl was even more exquisite. Now that things had come to this, how could he not see that this so-called Master Ninshuo was just a scammer who relied on the Mirage King's Pearl? As for the matter of Chun Jitao, the senior apprentice brother of the ocean fishing tower that he had once deeply believed in, it wasn't difficult for him to find a flaw in it. Chun Jitao was famous for being easy to talk to and having a good character. Perhaps he had really come into contact with Master Nanshuo in his early years and heard a few ambiguous words from him. Even if it had no effect on him, with Chun Jitao's character, he probably wouldn't go out of his way to deny it. Thus, Master Ninshuo had used his name to swindle people until today. The Mirage King's Pearl and the rumor that he had once taught Chun Jitao had deceived countless people in the coastal islands. Now that he looked at it again, in the entire incident, he was the most laughable one. He even wanted to kill someone on the spot. Li Longchuan saw through the truth with Zhu Wei's supernatural power and took away the Mirage King's Pearl with an arrow, breaking the illusory spell. Su Xiangxian did not hesitate and grabbed Master Ninshuo with his big hand. He easily caught Master Ninshuo and threw him to the ground. "Who are you? Pretending to be mysterious and boasting?" He shouted angrily, "Speak." Master Ninshuo was thrown to the ground, but he did not lose his momentum. "Two young people have no morals and sneak up on me. Is this appropriate? I was just careless and didn't dodge. If you have the guts, Let me go, and we'll fight again." Zhao Wuyin, who was sitting cross-legged on the futon and witnessed the entire incident, suddenly shook her head with a smile. "It's my weak Taoist heart that deserves this humiliation. For a proud Tianjiao like her, being easily deceived by a Jianghu sorcerer was undoubtedly a great humiliation." "Senior sister Zhao," Yang Lu said anxiously. If it weren't for his assurance and the fact that Chun Jitao, the first senior brother of the Fishing Sea Tower, had received guidance from him, how could a person like Zhao Wuyin believe in a master so easily? The words of a true disciple of the Fishing Sea Tower like him were too convincing. Zhao Wuyin waved her hand, indicating that he did not need to say more. "It's not your fault." She stood up and said to Su Xiangxian, "Junior brother Su, let him go. He's just a clown. It's fine to laugh at him. If you argue with him too much, you'll lose your dignity." "Huh," Su Xiangxian sneered. "A clown can indeed be laughed at, but you can't stop him from jumping in front of you and jumping on your roof." He took the opportunity to slap Master Nanshuo, causing his head to swing back and forth a few times. The round cat mask was also slapped away, revealing Master Nanshuo's wretched and mean face. Su Xiangxian would definitely listen to Zhao Wuyin's words. This was because he had always listened to Wuyin's words. But this time he did not. Jiang Wang and Li Longchuan would not care about such a clown. But they would not be forgiving for Su Xiangxian, because only those who were slandered would know the pain. Who was the person who was slandered as a good-for-nothing? Who was the person who was scolded as the shame of Greencliff? Who was the person who was mocked for not being able to perform a Taoist technique and being a complete piece of trash? It was not anyone who was watching from the sidelines and did not feel any pain. It was Su Xiangxian himself. It was Su Xiangxian who loved to brag the most, claiming that he was stronger than Wang Yiwu and Jiang Qingyan. He was always smiling mischievously, but he wasn't really shameless. So he felt wronged, and so he was furious. He firmly restrained Master Nanshuo with one hand and gently slapped his face with the other. "Ouch, Master Nanshuo! Kid smack! You have smack! You have guts smack! Brother smack!" Every time Master Nanshuo said 2 words, Su Xiangxian would accurately slap him. His slaps did not seem to be heavy, but they easily dispersed Master Nanshuo's voice. All his harsh words and begging for mercy were stuffed into his stomach. Su Xiangxian slapped his face again and again. His tone was exaggerated and surprised. "Master, where are you from? Which mountain are you from? What achievements do you have? How did you become a master?" Sigh. Jiang Wang sighed at the right time. It seems that he became a master just by pointing and pointing. "Ah, is that so?" Su Xiangxian widened his eyes in surprise. He stared at Master Nanshuo's face that was already swollen like a pig's head. He looked around in surprise and suddenly laughed wildly. "So this is a master? So this is a master. Ha ha." Li Longchuan also laughed. "Ha ha." Jiang Wang also laughed. For a moment, only the laughter of these 3 people echoed wantonly in the tea room. After that, on Small Crescent Island, master became a curse word. Chapter 840. Master Hardsay's mask had been taken off, and his face slapped in the Finger Hut tea house. The impact of this incident was actually quite far-reaching. However, the people who were present at the time couldn't see the aftermath. Most of them only felt anger at being fooled. It was only after the master was slapped off his pedestal that people saw his true appearance under the cover of illusion. This person was originally the successor of a small sect whose inheritance had been cut off. He had coincidentally obtained a Clam King's Pearl. He didn't think of using the Clam King's Pearl to cultivate properly. Instead, he used the Clam King's Pearl's illusory ability to swindle people. After the first successful attempt at deceiving others, things got out of hand. He had swindled countless people over the years and could be said to be rich. Ignoring the expenses, he had 38 storage boxes on him. Li Longchuan was the one who discovered the swindler, and Su Xiangxian was the one who held him down. These things naturally fell into their hands. There were several sects on Little Crescent Island, but no one was able to convince everyone. They became the official. Li Longchuan and the others couldn't hand over these so-called stolen goods to Sea Fishing Tower. The entire incident was due to Li Longchuan's candle-tiny ability. Jiang Wang and Su Xiangqian both firmly expressed that they wouldn't take a single cent. Li Longchuan, who was born in a famous sect, didn't lack these things. However, he thought of an excellent method. He sent these stolen goods to Ice Phoenix Island, along with Master Hardsay himself, to Ice Phoenix Island to be tried. Ice Phoenix Island was the overseas base of the Stone Gate Li family. Li Longchuan's sister, Li Fengyao, was currently overseeing the island. Li Longchuan set a rule. Everyone who had been swindled by Master Hardsay could recover their losses from Ice Phoenix Island as long as they could produce concrete evidence of their deceit. This continued until all of the stolen goods were cleared. During the entire process, the whereabouts of every Dao origin stone were publicly displayed. Ice Phoenix Island wouldn't take even half a stone. This method was brilliant. It used the fame of Master Hardsay to the greatest extent and greatly expanded Ice Phoenix Island's influence. The more hateful this old swindler was, the more trustworthy Ice Phoenix Island was in the eyes of the people. Ice Phoenix Island's public trial of Master Hardsay was even more amazing. It would undoubtedly establish Ice Phoenix Island's authority. This would create a common understanding among the people of the sea. Ice Phoenix Island was also a power with legal authority in the offshore archipelago. Just like in Chi, when people encountered injustice, the first thing they would think of would be the government. In the coastal islands, this role was taken over by the various sects on the sea. If they continued to develop on this foundation, Ice Phoenix Island would no longer be seen as an external force that belonged to Chi's Shermanly family. Instead, they would be recognized by the people of the nearby islands like Juming Island. As the legitimate son of the Li family of Sherman, he had been cultivating these methods of controlling people since he was a child. Li Longchuan's formation was a grand one. What it focused on was the general trend. It wasn't shocking, but it was unstoppable. There was no doubt that Master Nanji's deeds would spread far and wide through this round of returning stolen goods. But what was worth thinking about was he was merely a cultivator of the soaring dragon realm. How could he become a master sought after by everyone in the ocean just by relying on some ambiguous pointers? How many people actually understood his big and useless nonsense? However, no one questioned him. They only cheered. No one faced him head-on, only prostrating on the ground. Reverence, blind obedience, parroting the crowd. 3 people became tigers. It wasn't just ordinary people who were like this. Cultivators with extraordinary power were no different. Just like what Jiang Wang had said to Qing, Hua Qiming on the Void Continent, the people in the world above the blue sky were no different from the people on the Void Continent. But could they really be called extraordinary if they couldn't transcend the limitations of a mob? Now that Master Nanji had been captured, no one was in the mood to drink tea in peace. Su Xiangqian was an exception, of course. He swaggered over and asked someone to serve him tea again as if nothing had happened, pestering Zhao Weyin to talk. After the incident with Master Nanji, Yonglu felt very awkward and wanted nothing more than to find a hole to hide in. But he didn't want to leave. That was because he knew very well that he had lost a lot of points in this matter. If he left with his tail between his legs, he might not have another chance. Therefore, he also stayed in the tea house, bashful. The 3 of them squeezed into a table, just like that. The group of fellow disciples he had gathered didn't want to leave, so they all stayed. These people were all ordinary disciples of the Ocean Fishing Tower. They were purely there to support Yonglu so that they could easily beat up Su Xiangqian. None of them had any weight, so there was no need to mention them. Jiang Wang couldn't be bothered to join the 3 of them. He silently sat at the tea table to the side and watched the show. Li Longchuan was explaining things to the people of Ice Phoenix Island at the door. Master Nanji had already been tied up and carried away like a pig. Zhao Wuyin's junior sister, Miss Shu, was sitting next to Jiang Wang. Of course, this was Su Xiangqian's arrangement. She stole a few glances at Jiang Wang, who was quietly drinking tea and bashfully asked in a small voice, "Are you really the twin prides of Mount Haste?" Her voice was pitifully soft. Fortunately, Jiang Wang was a successful cultivator and had good hearing and vision. Otherwise, he wouldn't have heard it clearly, but he was still stunned. Ah! Jishu stealthily stretched out her index finger and pointed at Su Xiangqian, who was dancing in high spirits not far away. "You two are equally famous? Known as the twin prides of Mount Haste?" Her tone was full of doubt. After all, the difference in temperament between the two was too great. "You can say that. If it wasn't for the fact that the twin prides of Mount Haste had always been Su Xiangqian's one-sided title, he wouldn't be lying. But at this moment, what else could Jiang Wang say? He couldn't tear down his friend's stage in front of everyone. He could only smile bitterly. What kind of place is Mount Haste? After chatting for a while, Jishu wasn't so shy anymore. Curiosity was almost written all over her face. "It's a, special place." Jiang Wang was a bit embarrassed. This wasn't easy to make up. Su Xiangqian didn't tell him beforehand. "Oh, I understand." Jishu was very sensible. "Then I won't ask." He didn't know what she understood. After a pause, she asked again, "I heard that you only used 2 moves to defeat Wang Yiwu?" Jiang Wang was stunned at first, but after thinking about it, he understood why it was 2 moves. He said helplessly, "Su Xiangqian said that he only needed 1 move, right?" Jishu was very surprised. "How did you know?" This child was too naive. Jiang Wang sighed. "In the future, you should stay away from Su Xiangqian." Ah, Jishu was puzzled. "Why? He's actually a bad person?" "He's not that bad, but you take it too seriously. Why do you believe everything he says?" Jiang Wang thought to himself. Naturally, he couldn't say this out loud. He could only say, "If you get too close to him, you'll be infected." Jishu's eyes widened. Infected with what? Jiang Wang looked left and right. He covered his mouth with the back of his hand and said mysteriously, "Losing hair." Jishu covered her mouth in shock. She looked at Su Xiangqian's naturally shiny forehead and couldn't help but feel nervous. "No, I have to tell my senior." "That's not necessary." Jiang Wang quickly stopped her. He didn't want to be chased by Su Xiangqian with a knife. He explained, "After building the sacred tower, with the power of the stars protecting the body, there won't be any problems. Your senior apprentice sister should be pregnant." "Do you?" "No." Jishu shook her head embarrassedly. "I'm only in the first inner palace." She seemed to be very embarrassed. She didn't realize how amazing it was for her to be in the inner palace at such a young age. Jiang Wang obviously knew that she wasn't in the outer palace yet. He said seriously, "Then you have to stay away from him." "This isn't a joke." "Yes." Jishu nodded vigorously. After a while, she leaned over and whispered, "You're so nice." Ah. Jiang Wang was admiring the battle between Su Xiangqian and Yang Lu. When he heard this, he said perfunctorily, "Ah." Jishu's face was serious as she said, "Friends are such a private matter. A gentleman like you would definitely not be willing to share with others. But because you care about me, you're worried about me losing hair. You still said it. You're really a good person." Jiang Wang wasn't Su Xiangqian. He still wanted to save some face. His face was full of embarrassment. He lowered his head and drank a mouthful of tea to cover it up. Many years later, when Su Xiangqian investigated the origin of the rumor, "Those who are close to you will go bald," he would never have thought that it had already been born in the spring of the year 3919. Chapter 841. She didn't expect a Tianjiao person like Jiang Wang to be as approachable as an older brother next door. He was even shy. Jishu looked at Jiang Wang, who was drinking tea with his head lowered, and her imagination ran wild. The disciples of Fishing Ocean Tower were discussing various matters in low voices. Li Longchuan had already made arrangements and was walking towards Jiang Wang. Su Xiangqian was talking to Zhao Wuyin nonstop. Zhao Wuyin sipped his tea and basically didn't reply. She didn't have the space to speak either. Basically, Yang Lu had taken over the conversation, and vice versa. In short, Zhao Wuyin was the one being chased. But from beginning to end, Only Su Xiangqian and Yang Lu were chatting happily. Fishing Ocean Tower's eldest senior brother, Chun Jitao, walked into the tea house in such an atmosphere. He was a man with thick eyebrows, a wide nose, and a medium build. He looked ordinary and had an honest temperament. He had obviously just arrived from the outer island and had the aura of the sea breeze on him. Eldest senior brother, the disciples of Fishing Ocean Tower, all stood up. At this time, Master Nanyu was already on his way to Ice Phoenix Island. They didn't know why Chun Jitao, the eldest disciple of Fishing Ocean Tower, was here. Yang Lu hurriedly retreated from Zhao Wuyin's attentiveness and walked up to him. Eldest senior brother, why are you here? Chun Jitao's expression was very helpless. I was doing something nearby. I heard about Master Nanyu and hurried over to take a look. Back then, I even specifically asked you if that bullsh asterisk Team Master Nani had really taught you before. Why didn't you deny it? You made me lose face and even caused senior sister, Zhao, to lose face. Yang Liu's tone was full of complaints. But it was this complaint that showed his trust and closeness to Chun Jitao. Mr. Zhao, I'm sorry. Chun Jitao first apologized to Zhao Wuyin and then smiled bitterly at Yang Lu. He did teach me. How can I deny it? Zhao Wuyin only said that he didn't dare. Su Xiangqian glanced at him as if he was looking at a swindler, but didn't say anything. He's a swindler. What can he teach you? Yang Lu was a little agitated. In fact, it was mainly to tell Zhao Wuyin, you see, it's really not my fault. I was also tricked by my own senior. Chun Jitao awkwardly said. He said that I should not be discouraged and that I would be able to get past this hurdle. In the end, I managed to get through it. What kind of guidance is this? Yang Lu frowned and said, this kind of nonsense that seems correct but is actually useless can be said by anyone. Now, he was able to determine the truth. It was as if he had completely forgotten the time when he had repeatedly said that it was so deafening. Chun Jitao was silent for a while. I haven't seen him since God's descent. I didn't think that he had been lying all this time. Without mentioning anything else, this person's temper was really good. Despite being an Ascension God expert and the eldest senior brother of the sect, he wasn't angry at all at Yang Lu's accusation. Instead, he patiently explained himself, giving off the feeling that he was right. Sigh. Yang Lu sighed. I can't blame you, senior brother. It can only be said that we are too honest and don't have our guard up against others. Unlike some people who have been soaked in conspiracies and machinations and can easily sniff out the scent. The more he spoke, the more strange his words became. It was as if Li Longchuan and Su Xiangqian could expose liars because they themselves were rotten to the core. Su Xiangqian raised his chin and was about to scold. Chun Jitao stopped him first. Junior brother, you can't say that. Chi's fellow Taoists have helped our offshore islands uncover the black sheep and clean the sea. We all owe them a favor. Finished speaking, he specially bowed to Li Longchuan and Su Xiangqian. He didn't even forget to bring Jiang Wang along. It could be said that he was well-mannered. Jiang Wang didn't have any influence in the offshore islands, so he didn't say anything. Su Xiangqian carefully observed Chun Jitao's expression, as if trying to determine whether his words were an expression of gratitude or a declaration of sovereignty. Li Longchuan chuckled and said, Why are you so polite, Brother Chun? Ice Phoenix Island is also offshore. Many Li clansmen live here all year round. The offshore islands are my second hometown. It's only right that I do something for my hometown. Chun Jitao treated him as an outsider, but he insisted that this was also his hometown. Just like all these years, Fishing Sea Tower and Chi's major families who came to the sea to operate. This was a grand microcosm. The latter wanted to take root deeply, while the former resisted desperately. Chun Jitao didn't comment and said, Although Master Nani's deceit has nothing to do with my Fishing Sea Tower, I didn't say anything about it. But I should take responsibility for not clarifying the discussion early. As the leader of the sea, Fishing Sea Tower has the obligation to uphold justice. How about this? Junior Brother Yang, spread the word that all those who have been deceived by Master Nani over the years, as long as they can produce relevant evidence, my Fishing Sea Tower will help make up for their losses. There's no limit. He actually used Li Longchuan's measures again. Moreover, he would pay out of his own pocket, which was even more generous. This no limit was meaningless because not many people had the guts to deceive the fishing sea tower. Whether there was a limit or not, it was all because of Master Nani's deceit. But when he said it out loud, it sounded very nice and imposing. Li Longchuan didn't say anything. It was impossible to bypass the fishing sea tower when doing anything in the offshore islands. It was expected that the fishing sea tower would come to split the influence of Ice Phoenix Island and not let the Stone Gately family get the most benefits. As long as he got the first wave of reputation, he would have already profited. Now it was just a matter of how much he earned. Moreover, in the cultivation world, the strong were respected. At this moment, among the people present, he, Su Xiangqian, and Jiang Wang were all at the inner palace. Chun Jitao was already a God Realm expert. Strictly speaking, the two sides weren't on the same level. The 24 elders of the fishing sea tower were divided into 4 upper, 8 middle, and 12 lower, with a clear hierarchy. Zhu Biqiong and Hai Zhongming were both elders with real power, but they were both lower. Chun Jitao was already at the God Realm, so even if he didn't improve, he would at least be a middle elder in the future. Of course, he was more likely to be the future head of the fishing sea tower. If Li Longchuan really wanted to compete with him, he could only hit a wall. Only Su Xiangqian wasn't willing to be bullied. He immediately snorted coldly. "You're just taking advantage of others." Mockery was evident in his words. Yang Lu said gloomily, "Surnamed Su, do you think that my eldest senior brother's cultivation is also fake? Do you want to give it a try?" Su Xiangqian didn't know what would happen if he tried. Su Gao wasn't stupid. He wouldn't force himself to hit a wall. He only laughed. "I thought only 3-year-old children would look for their parents if they can't beat them. I didn't expect there to be such an amazing person in the fishing sea tower." Yang Lu was furious. "Who can't beat who? Did you forget your front teeth?" Su Xiangqian sneered. "What are you thinking, Miss Yang? The swelling on your left eye hasn't gone down for long, has it? Who are you calling a miss?" The two immediately quarreled again, so loud that it hurt one's ears. Chun Jitao himself didn't move at all. He looked at Su Xiangqian without any anger. He only smiled and said, "When 3 people walk together, there's bound to be a teacher. Choose what is good and follow what is bad and change what is bad. Brother Su is a disciple of the academy, so you should understand this principle better than me." His magnanimity was indeed much better than Yang Liu's. Jiang Wang silently observed all of this. Chun Jitao was the fishing sea tower. Yang Lu was also the fishing sea tower. The powerful sects that dominated the sea were formed by all kinds of cultivators. They had different personalities and abilities, but they had a common trait that united them. Only then could they fight the raging sea and the torrential current. They dared to set up the Tianya platform and fish for dragons at the end of the world. Jiang Wang didn't say anything, but he was using his own method to understand the fishing sea tower more. Only by knowing yourself and your enemy can you win 100 battles. It was a pity that Chun Jitao only came for a short meeting. He couldn't let others see more. He seemed to have heard the news halfway and came to deal with the bad influence of Master Nanyu's matter. Then he left in a hurry. No one knew what kind of matter made an expert of his level run around. Chapter 842. After the incident with Master Nanyu, Jiang Wang stopped at Small Crescent Island. After Zhao Wuyin fell for it, he seemed to have thought it through. He was not so focused on cultivation anymore, and went sightseeing and sightseeing every day. Su Xiangqian still followed him and pestered him every day. While Li Longchuan was dealing with his family's affairs in the offshore islands, he was often asked to help. Jiang Wang refused to go out and was unwilling to be used by Su Xiangqian for a deal. He announced that he was going into seclusion, but in fact, he was cultivating while waiting for Cheng Gengsheng and Jiang Wuyo to arrive. During these days of personally observing the offshore islands, he and Cheng Gengsheng kept exchanging letters. The whole rescue plan for Zhu Biqiong was also overturned and repeated again and again. The things that could be done in Linzi had been done. It was about time for them to come to the sea and make the final preparations. After coming down from the sword discourse arena, Jiang Wang ended his cultivation in the great illusionary land for the day. He only reached the 77th place in the inner mansion realm because he did not use any supernatural powers, nor did he use any of his original Taoist techniques. Moreover, he spent most of his time exploring the inner mansion. He wanted to find his second secret treasure before the start of the sea sacrifice, but this was not something that could be rushed. If the secret treasures were not to his liking, he could only let them go. The 15th of March had passed in his cultivation. His ranking in the Blessed Land dropped again from the Sword Discourse Arena to the Maogong Altar. The changes in the great illusionary land that he had been looking forward to had not happened yet, but they were gradually approaching. This was the feeling that the Blessed Land gave him. However, probably because he had never really owned the Blessed Land, he did not get a clear guide. When Jiang Wuyo came to Small Crescent Island, it was the 20th of March. Chung Gungsheng went to Neverwinter Island midway and did not go with him. Coincidentally, Yin Fu, who was wandering in the offshore islands, was also going to return to the island on this day. Perhaps it was not a coincidence. This was because before Yin Fu came to Little Crescent Island, he had sent a letter to inform a few people. However, his honest and kind friends might have forgotten, but none of them reminded him that Jiang Wuyo was also on the island at this moment. To welcome Jiang Wuyo, Chun Feng Lu was naturally not suitable. Places like tea houses were too quiet and not suitable for welcoming guests. In the end, they decided to go to the Three Flavor Manor. The name sounded like it had something to do with Jiang Wang's Samadhi True Fire, but in fact, it was completely different. It was taken from the saying, "The taste of reading scriptures is like rice millet. The taste of reading history is like delicious food, and the taste of reading the 100 schools of thought is like asshole." The reason why the Three Flavor Manor was named this way was to use the beauty of poetry to describe the taste of food. This place was most famous for its seafood feast. The guests were Jiang Wuyo, Jiang Wang, Li Longchuan, Su Xiangqian, Zhao Wuyin, Ji Shu, and Yang Lu. Everyone sat in pairs facing each other. In front of each person, there was a table with all kinds of seafood delicately and properly prepared. Yang Lu was a little strange at the banquet, but during this period of time, he was determined to compete with Su Xiangqian. He would not allow Su Xiangqian to have a chance to be alone with Zhao Wuyin. Jiang Wang even refused him with the reason of being embarrassed, but he immediately said that he could pay for it himself. Jiang Wang and the others were holding a banquet in this hall, so he booked the banquet hall next door. After several confrontations with Su Xiangqian, his face was visibly firmer. In short, it was growing very quickly. In the end, they sat together without any awkwardness. The matter of rescuing Zhu Biqiong was only discussed in private by Jiang Wang, Jiang Wuyo, and Chung Gungsheng. Therefore, at the banquet, they only talked about their experiences at sea. Jiang Wuyo talked about how on the way here, they encountered a sea beast that went out of control. Jiang Wang also said that he had encountered it and killed one with his own hands. Yang Lu immediately took over the topic. Recently, there have been more incidents of sea beasts going out of control. Our fishing tower has also noticed it. We have arranged for an investigation. There will be results soon. In other words, this kind of thing did not need cheese people to worry too much. Jiang Wuyo did not seem to understand. In your personal opinion, what do you think is the reason? She was very clear about the identity of the true disciple of Yang Lu Fishing Tower, so she asked this question very directly. Yang Lu shook his head. This matter cannot be concluded easily. We have to investigate carefully before we can get an accurate answer. Although he and Su Xiangqian behaved a little childishly in the process of chasing Zhao Wuyin, he was not stupid. When it came to the affairs of the sect, he was very tight-lipped. Jiang Wuyo did not care. He turned his head and said, "Miss Zhao, what do you think?" Zhao Wuyin did not refuse. She pondered for a moment and said, "The method to control sea beasts was created many years ago. It is time to change it." She did not guess the direct reason for the frequent incidents of sea beasts going out of control. Instead, she pointed out the fundamental problem. As for whether the sea beasts went out of control due to some kind of evolution of the sea beasts, or the ulterior motives of some factions, or even the sea race, she did not talk about it. But everything was unsaid. She was really amazing. Li Longchuan said, "Speaking of which, our Ice Phoenix Island also has a sea beast, but its control method is different from the one from Fishing Tower. I don't know if it has been solved. I also don't know the reason behind the sea beast going out of control this time. Will there be a bigger storm?" At this point, Yang Lu, as a cultivator from Fishing Tower, could not pretend to be ignorant anymore. He could only say, "Actually, we have some ideas. It is hard to say what the specific progress is, but we will definitely be able to solve it before mid-April." Then, without waiting for the others to ask, he turned to Jiang Wuyo. "I have not asked your highness. Why did you personally come to the sea? This place should not be as prosperous as Lindsay. Of course, it cannot be compared to Lindsay, but it is also quite impressive." Jiang Wuyo did not care whether he was being serious or not. He sat there and said with a heroic spirit, "I came to the sea this time for 2 reasons. First, I have some matters to take care of on Jueming Island. Second, I also want to attend the ceremony and participate in the Sea Festival. Why? Does Brother Yang have any advice for me?" Among the group, she and Li Longchuan were the most similar. They were both very heroic. Li Longchuan came from a family of generals. Jiang Wuyo's foundation was also in the military. Apart from the crown prince, Jiang Wuyo relied more on the military. Jiang Wuqi relied more on the political, and Jiang Wuyo relied more on the imperial clan. Jiang Wuxia relied more on the imperial clan and received more support from the imperial clan. Thus, they competed with each other. Yang Lu immediately smiled. "How could I dare to speak to your highness like that? Everyone in Fishing Tower welcomes your highness to participate in the Sea Festival. You don't have to welcome me." Jiang Wuyo chuckled. "The sea sacrifice is an activity of the entire offshore archipelago. It's not the only one. Our Juming Island also participates. Let's organize it together and make it more lively." Speaking of which, it was still a matter of priority. Fishing Tower obviously did not want their position to be challenged, but they could not completely cut off Chi's tentacles. Instead, they could only watch as the overlord of the eastern region expanded bit by bit. Fishing Tower wanted to always maintain their dominance over the sea. After Chi stabilized his position as the overlord of the eastern region, he also wanted the same position as the Sioux nation in the sea. Both sides worked together because of the sea race and the bewildering world, but the competition between them had never stopped. Not in the past, and not in the present. Before one side completely bowed down, they would not stop. Yang Lu pursed her lips and was about to say something. Suddenly, a voice came from outside the hall. The mood in the voice was light, carefree, and unrestrained. It showed that the owner was in a good mood. "Brother Jiang, you've been well these days." Yin Fu stepped into the banquet hall with light steps. His cheerful tone gradually weakened. "Greetings, Your Highness. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.